Professor Gua has been teaching for so many years. His students are not only SR but also SSR and even UR. The future of those students is boundless, especially the SSR and UR. They become the key cultivation targets of the Jiuzhou Alliance as soon as they graduate. Without the corresponding professional qualities, they still occupy various important positions, and then they turn around to issue orders to people like Professor Gua, pointing fingers at him. And Shiyu's voice was already filled with anger. Although Professor Gua is the chief defense officer of Liangzhou's border, he still has to obey the commands of the Jiuzhou Alliance. His students who are at SSR and UR levels easily climb to incredibly high positions, becoming the leader's team. Xiang Beifei asked curiously, "How do you know they are using Professor Gua for their tasks?" "He told me himself," and Shiyu said solemnly, "There are always some prodigal sons who think that because they have high talent, they can do as they please and get any person they desire. But when they can't get what they want, they become furiously embarrassed." She clenched her fists tightly. "I will never forget that person. He told me that if he wished, he could even have Professor Gua transferred from his position, demote him, making Professor Gua no more than a subordinate he could call and send like a dog, just a target for completing system tasks. It's hard to believe how much Professor Gua had cared for him, wholeheartedly nurtured him, taught him all he could teach, groomed him into a talent, only to raise an ungrateful wretch." And Shiyu's knuckles had turned white from her grip. "Did you compromise?" Xiang Beifei asked. And Shiyu looked at Xiang Beifei, icy to the extreme. Xiang Beifei said, "From what you're saying, that person leveraged Professor Gua to threaten you? To force you into some compromise?" And Shiyu snorted coldly, neither admitting nor denying it. Xiang Beifei asked again, "What's the name of that person? What is his system level? What if you know? You're so weak now you can't do anything, and you're unlikely to ever reach his heights. He's an SSR, possibly someone you could never catch up to in your lifetime." And Shiyu said coldly, "SSR." Xiang Beifei pondered for a moment, then let out a light laugh. Just a few days ago, an SSR newcomer named Ho Chenggu, who had wanted to cause trouble for him, had been basically crippled. Ho Chenggu, relying on his high talent, was unwilling to attend the same school as Xiang Beifei, who was an N-level, and had refused Liangzhou University last minute to go to Qingzhou University. He even followed a teacher from Qingzhou University to provoke Elder Luo, intending to strip him of his cultivation. If Xiang Beifei wanted, this SSR would remain nothing but a piece of trash for the rest of his life. He never cared what the other party's system talent was. SSR or UR, there was no difference in his eyes. If they annoyed him, he couldn't be bothered to fleece them. He would simply shear them bald. "Tell me the name, so I can keep an eye out and guard against him in the future," Xiang Beifei said. In fact, his real intention was to get the name, keep an eye out, and one day cripple that guy. Professor Gua is a person worthy of respect. In Xiang Beifei's eyes, he is just like Elder Luo, a venerable elder. If an elder gets bullied, the younger generation has to step in and help out. A peculiar light appeared in Shiyu's eyes, as if she was contemplating Xiang Beifei's words. "His name is Wu Shixian, an SSR awakener, graduated 2 years ago and works at the Alliance's defense headquarters." And Shiyu said, "Professor Gua is merely the command chief of Liangzhou's frontline defense, but Wu Shixian holds a position at the Jiuzhou Alliance's defense headquarters, one rank higher." "Got it, Wu Shixian." Xiang Beifei noted down the name. And Shiyu looked at Xiang Beifei. "I don't understand what kind of person you are, so I won't trust you. By telling you all this, I only hope that Elder Luo's decision to take you as an apprentice is a correct one. Professor Gua and Elder Luo, they have a relationship of life and death, often bicker on normal days, but they are the types that would take a knife in the ribs for each other." "I can see that," Xiang Beifei said. Elder Luo would go to such lengths to trick Professor Gua, and Professor Gua would only curse a bit and then agree. The relationship between the two old men is solid indeed. "I hope you understand what kind of predecessors you've encountered. Elder Luo, when he gets angry, acts more directly than Professor Gua. Once on the battlefield, an SSR disobeyed orders and he killed him on the spot, but it also caused him a lot of trouble. Elder Luo likes to live freely. He doesn't like the confinement of rules and regulations. When pressure is applied from above, he leaves without a second word, not willing to take their nonsense, and they don't dare say anything more because Elder Luo is very powerful, with the ability to command in battle, so they don't dare to stop him. But Professor Guo is unwilling to retire. With his strength and experience, he could take up an even higher position within the alliance, certainly higher than Wu Shixian. But he refused. He likes working on the front lines. Liangzhou University is close to the wilderness beyond the domain, where he can train students and also guard the border, maintaining Jizhou's line of defense, to prevent the tragedy that happened to him from befalling other families. He stays on the frontline position with formidable strength but not a high rank. Thus, he must heed the arrangements of the alliance headquarters. Even if he feels aggrieved, he bears it. But he has said that even if there's only one student out of 10 who is influenced by him, who develops a sense of duty as a guardian, then his effort is not wasted. And Xiyu was full of reverence for Professor Guo with every sentence she spoke. She too yearned to become someone like Professor Guo, to take over his mantle and properly guard the alliance's front line. Her temperament was very similar to Professor Guo. She rigorously demanded improvement from herself and took Professor Guo as her role model. However, she also saw things more clearly than Professor Guo and was not as blatantly straightforward as him. Professor Guo is a good person, Xiang Beifei sincerely said. He respected people like Professor Guo, for only such people were the pillars of Juzhou, capable of ensuring the safety of everyone in Juzhou, unlike some who lacked capability but held important positions because they only brought disaster to Juzhou. In this world, the system's rank had become a sign of status, and the Juzhou Alliance never considered whether someone's system was harmful to others. As long as someone was an SSR Awakener, they would directly recruit them. Because the SSR label was akin to a religion in the eyes of other civilians in Juzhou, many people revered and blindly followed them. Moreover, since high-ranking systems could suppress lower-ranking ones, recruiting SSRs also made it easier to manage lower-ranking Awakeners. This was evident from Wei Tong, an SSR Awakener who knew nothing about desolate beasts but had still become the dean of the martial arts college. It showed just how distorted the current management of the system world was. Such a system inevitably also caused many cases of undeserving people in positions of power. For example, Wu Shixian, whom Xiyu mentioned, was a representative of this. After a moment of silence, Xiyu continued, "You just asked me if I had compromised with that person. I didn't, because I told him that Professor Luo is still here. After retiring, Professor Luo didn't leave Liangzhou University. He stays here more to deter those who try to play games and also to prevent Professor Guo from suffering losses. Even though Wu Shixian is an SSR, he is very wary of Professor Luo because, in Professor Luo's eyes, there is only right and wrong, no distinction between SSRs and N-levels. Thus, Wu Shixian doesn't dare provoke Professor Luo's wrath. Wu Shixian now doesn't dare to openly make moves against Professor Guo. All because of Elder Luo, but I know Wu Shixian will indeed play dirty tricks. As long as Professor Guo chooses to serve as the commander of the Liangzhou defense frontline, he must obey some orders issued from above." And Xiyu looked earnestly at Xiang Beifei with a trace of plea. Whether it's Professor Guo or Professor Luo, they are the backbone of Juzhou, having fought bloody battles for Juzhou. I don't know why both of them think highly of you, but please don't let them down and don't harm them. Keeping a grateful heart and finding your own place is the most correct thing. After dropping these words, Xiyu gave Xiang Beifei another look, then turned and left. "Finding my own place, huh?" Xiang Beifei smiled absently. He was well aware of his own place. Yi Changfeng confronted Yu Qixin for Xiang Beifei. Elder Luo flipped a table in front of the principal for him. Professor Guo scolded the entire class for him and was even now bargaining with Elder Luo over taking disciples. Those who cared for him he would earnestly remember. Professor Guo could have retired and lived out his days in comfort, but he chose to stay in the profession and continue to work on the front lines. He truly dedicated himself to the job of being a guardian. Professor Guo had turned down a promotion offered by the higher-ups. Thus, even with his strong abilities and vast experience, he would be suppressed by some in the alliance who had high potential but lacked practical abilities. Xiang Beifei also liked freedom. His temperament was much like Elder Luo's, disliking constraints and preferring to live at his own leisure, which is why he enjoyed spending time with Elder Luo counting ducks by the lake, watching clouds drift by, observing ants moving house, and such. That was also an attitude toward life. However, even Elder Luo, despite his freeness, needed to be cautious of some things. But not Xiang Beifei. He just needed to fiercely mess with his opponent's system from behind the scenes. This Wu Shixian, daring to target an upright person like Professor Gua, Xiang Beifei would definitely make him pay a price. If he had the chance to encounter him, Xiang Beifei would straight up destroy his system. The name Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes had already become famous at Liangzhou University's combat arena these past few days, gathering 90 points in just 3 days, setting up the challenge stage, defending the stage, facing the opponent with a sword in each encounter, chopping down many previously notorious late-stage chi-controlling elites, forcefully carving out his own reputation. Everyone was speculating who this powerful sword cultivator really was, whether it was an old student who had changed his name or a new student who was an SR. Now, on the forums of Liangzhou University, the topic Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes Call Me to Patrol the Mountains, a sword cultivator, had completely overshadowed the N-level body cultivator Xiang Beifei in popularity. Powerful sword cultivators always amazed people. They possessed advanced sword Dao systems, comparable to the N-level body cultivation for discussion. Do you think that body cultivator Xiang Beifei will come to challenge the sword cultivator Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes Call Me to Patrol the Mountains? Don't be silly. Although a body cultivator is more impressive than our S-level, the Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes Call Me to Patrol the Mountains is the one who defeated the SR Long Guoqing. No matter how powerful a body cultivator is, they can't match an SR. I don't know why, but I still really want to see the N-level new body cultivator and the sword cultivator fight. Right? The Leisure Cloud sword cultivator is a late-stage chi-controlling strength. And although the body cultivator is only mid-stage, he is also very powerful. If the two of them were to fight, that would be interesting. Everyone thought that SRs firmly suppressed N-level body cultivators, but those who held this opinion were not SRs because a true SR defeated by an N-level body cultivation wouldn't come forward to admit this outrageous mistake. However, every year the arena saw the emergence of some dazzling new stars. After all, Liangzhou University never lacked geniuses. There were many with undefeated golden bodies in previous sessions, so people didn't delve too deeply. On Thursday evening, Yi Changfeng was preparing his lessons in his office. These past few days he had been busy recruiting new students for the club, which was rather distressing. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. "Come in," Yi Changfeng said. "Yi Changfeng, have you been to the combat arena this week?" A man entered, who was also a teacher at Liangzhou University, named Yang Luo, an S-level awakener. "I haven't had the time. I'm planning to focus on nurturing the student club this semester. These 3 days I've been busy recruiting new members, and I haven't strolled around the combat arena," Yi Changfeng said. "About your promotion to associate professor?" Yang Luo asked. Yes. Yi Changfeng and Yang Luo were good friends as well as colleagues at the university, usually having a good relationship.
Yang Luo taugt elective courses.
"And you're not going to the combat arena to recruit? Where are there new students at the combat arena? I need fresh blood. Planning to pick some new students to properly train for a whole year. New students were too weak, and few went to the combat arena at the start of the school year, but Yi Changfeng needed new students. He had already tried his best to recruit these past days. His reputation was indeed prestigious. After all, he was an SR-level teacher, in strength no less than Yu Qixin. But unfortunately, he had not been at the school the previous academic year. The students who knew of his prowess were all now juniors, many of whom were in the Meridian opening phase. He couldn't attract them to his club. As for the sophomores, there were plenty at the chi-controlling stage, but unfortunately, these sophomores hadn't heard of Yi Changfeng when they were freshmen, and hearing that he ran a poorly ranked club like Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes, they instantly had a low impression of him. After nearly 4 days of recruiting, not a single person wanted to join his club. "I just happened to be on duty as a referee at the combat arena recently, and I spotted a student for you." A genius appeared at the combat arena, gaining almost 100 points in just a few days. Yang Luo said admiringly. That impressive? Must be an old student, right? Yi Changfeng asked. No, with my discernment, I can tell this person has never appeared in the combat arena before. Definitely not an old student. It must be some SR from the new students. I can guarantee it, Yang Luo said confidently. Being a university professor, one's eye for talent wasn't poor, as each teacher took turns serving as a referee in the combat arena. So they had a clear sense of a student's weight. An SR? Then there's even less hope. Yi Changfeng shook his head. Although he was also an SR, Liangzhou University was not short of SR-level teachers. The clubs run by those SR teachers were all strong. How could they join his poor little club? Not necessarily. Like you, he is a powerful sword cultivator. Yang Luo said meaningfully. A sword cultivator. Yi Changfeng's eyes suddenly lit up. Although there were many SR-level teachers, among these SRs, only Yi Changfeng was a sword cultivator. If this new SR was also a sword cultivator, then logically and reasonably, he should train with Yi Changfeng, who was also an SR sword cultivator, as this would be the fastest way to improve. Right, I thought of this point and felt it necessary for you to meet him. Once he knows you are an SR-level sword cultivator, he will definitely follow you. And in that case, your club will have another powerful assistant, making the associate professor evaluation this academic year a sure success. Yang Luo said righteously. What is this sword cultivator's name? Yi Changfeng suddenly perked up. I don't know his real name, but his name in the combat arena is Idle Fish sent me to patrol the mountain. So you'd better hurry, or other teachers will get to him first. He should also be coming tonight, you should go check it out, Yang Luo said. The information in the combat arena was confidential, and even teachers couldn't find out who the students were. Many points for student clubs were earned in the combat arena, and the clubs were linked with the responsible teachers. To prevent teachers from favoring their own clubs and deliberately helping their students study the opponents, all information in the combat arena was kept completely confidential. Even the videos couldn't be leaked. This meant both Yang Luo and Yi Changfeng couldn't know the real name of this Idle Fish sent me to patrol the mountain. A formidable sword cultivator. Idle Fish sent me to patrol the mountain. A gleam of sharp light flashed in Yi Changfeng's eyes. The last time, Elder Luo intervened, and Xiang Beifei was taken away, leaving him helpless. This time he couldn't be slow again. He must recruit a suitable closed-door disciple first. This Idle Fish sent me to patrol the mountain. An SR sword cultivator was simply a closed-door disciple meticulously prepared by heaven for him. The heavens have been kind to me. Although he had missed a rare genius like Xiang Beifei, he was sent a suitable new sword cultivator. The hope of taking on a disciple was looking up. Let's go, there's no delay. We can't let anyone snatch him. Yi Changfeng immediately set off, rushing to the combat arena with Yang Luo. The points ranking of clubs was updated at the end of each month, so the Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes club still had only negative 256 points. In his busyness recruiting people these last few days, he had forgotten to check the registered names of the only 4 students in his club. Upon arriving at the combat arena, Yi Changfeng was extremely excited, and he found a spot to sit with Yang Luo in the spectator stands. I tell you, this is the most talented sword cultivator I've ever seen. Incredibly strong. And that sword, it's magical. The way he wields it, very similar to yours. No one can withstand his sword. He's absolutely a genius. You shouldn't miss out on him. Yang Luo was praising the Idle Fish sent me to patrol the mountain endlessly to Yi Changfeng, who was itching with eagerness. In his mind, he already envisioned a grand blueprint. As long as this Idle Fish sent me to patrol the mountain met his conditions for taking on a disciple, he would definitely teach this person all he knew. Soon his Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes club would have, in one hand Xiang Beifei, and in the other an SR sword cultivator, truly unbeatable across all clubs. At that moment, the announcer also called out, Ring 9, Idle Fish sent me to patrol the mountain, versus the glory of genius. Here it comes. Yi Changfeng was exhilarated. The Longyuan sword also sprang into action, fully prepared, ready to observe this new sword cultivator. They all watched the student on stage wearing a mask. Yang Luo had already pointed out which one was. Idle fish sent me to patrol the mountain. Then they saw idle fish sent me to patrol the mountain, draw out the shimmering Ronin sword and slice down his opponent. Yi Changfeng was petrified on the spot. How about it? This sword cultivator is formidable, right? If you take him on, you owe me a meal, Yang Luo said, turning to Yi Changfeng. But he suddenly felt something was off. For some reason Yi Changfeng was bowing his head, drawing circles on the ground with a sword. Hey, why aren't you talking?
Yang Luo asked.
Yi Changfeng was on the verge of tears. What else could he say? He thought he had found a treasure, had already planned in his mind to cultivate this SR-level sword cultivator as his successor, to make up for the regret of not having recruited an excellent student like Xiang Beifei initially. Who could have imagined? This treasure was still that same guy. This guy was masquerading as a body cultivator outside, and now in the combat arena he was wielding his sword pretending to be a sword cultivator. The worst part is that he actually did it convincingly. Too cruel. Would he be able to pretend to be a blade cultivator if they gave him a knife next time? Yi Changfeng's grand plan of taking a disciple had gone down the drain, but Xiang Beifei was realistically earning points for his club. Yi Changfeng didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Friday's first class, Xiang Beifei split from Li Zimu and others, going alone to attend the Wilderness Survival Simulation class. Xiang Beifei was transferred to Yi Changfeng's class, not with Yu Qixin, so he didn't go with Li Zimu and the other two. The first class of the term on Wilderness Survival Simulation was theoretical without any simulations, so Yi Changfeng simply introduced what this course was all about. The course required students to learn how to deal with dangers in extreme conditions of wilderness environments. The wilderness had many strange areas, including snow mountains, deserts, forests, rocky foggy mountains, high lightning areas, and even places with boiling lava. Xiang Beifei's last visit to the forest was considered the most basic domain outside a desolate realm. This course is designed to teach students how to protect themselves in these dangerous environments, what the weather conditions are, which desolate beasts inhabit each type of terrain, how these desolate beasts will attack humans, what methods are needed to evade these desolate beasts, where to go to slay the right desolate beasts to obtain beast pills as energy sources for human society. I hope you all remember that any knowledge about the domain outside desolate realms is not unfounded. It is acquired through the sacrifices of many pioneers' lives. Thus, at the Martial Arts College, every pioneer deserves respect. Master this knowledge well. Do not let the blood of our predecessors flow in vain, nor let your own lives be lost for nothing. Yi Changfeng reiterated the importance of this course and gave everyone a rough impression of the domain outside the desolate realms. This knowledge was not taught in high school, as high school students still need to choose between the literary Dao and the martial Dao. Students of the literary Dao might never visit the domain outside the desolate realms, so it is not necessary for them to learn this. Freshmen are currently not allowed to go to the domain outside the desolate realms. They need to master the basic knowledge first, earn student points in the combat arena, pass the assessments of simulated courses, and then they are permitted to go to the domain outside the desolate realms. Regular students begin their ventures to the domain outside the desolate realms starting from their sophomore year. Of course, there are some exceptionally talented individuals who are exceptions. They only need to earn the necessary student points and then gain permission from their teachers, such as some SR and SSRs, and individuals like Xiang Beifei. After class, Xiang Beifei was detained again. Yi Changfeng got straight to the point. I need a class representative for my course. Are you interested? Xiang Beifei, who was in a rather pleasant mood, suddenly showed a face full of resistance. His brows furrowed as if they were about to become a twisted rag. I know you probably don't like this sort of thing. Elder Luo told me, Professor Gua has designated you as his class representative. I think Professor Gua might now feel resentment toward Elder Luo that could condense into an artificial lake, regretting that he was a step late and didn't snatch you under his wing as a disciple. Yi Changfeng, one of Elder Luo's closed-door disciples, was more aware than anyone of the relationship between Professor Gua and Elder Luo. However, he too looked at Xiang Beifei with a mournful expression, feeling miserable when he recalled last night's events. His resentment seemed no less than that of Professor Guo. He now understood why Professor Guo had such a large gripe with Elder Luo. Students like Xiang Beifei were indeed a rare talent. Pretending to be a body cultivator, everyone in the college really thought he was into body cultivation. Change his name, then hold a sword acting as a sword cultivator. And suddenly everyone thought a remarkable sword cultivator had appeared among the freshmen. Yi Chongfeng's mood last night was like riding a roller coaster, up and down. Then seeing Xiang Beifei earn 120 points for his club in just a few days, he went up again. Xiang Beifei asked curiously, "Mr. Yi, did you learn Professor Guo's defense skills?" "He once asked me if I needed it, but I have my own swordsmanship for defense, which suits me best." Yi Chongfeng was also an SR-level awakener, awakened with the supremacy of 10,000 sword system, where each sword had special abilities, inherently not lacking defense skills. "I see." Xiang Beifei nodded slightly. "All right, if you follow Professor Guo to learn defense skills, have to chat with Elder Luo daily, and now I'm forcefully pulling you to be the labor force of the club. I shouldn't make you the class representative. If I assign you any more trivial tasks, you'd probably hate me." Hate is a strong word, but scores are quite important in school after all. Xiang Beifei rather agreed with Yi Chongfeng, his nominal senior brother. At least during the initial admissions assessment, Yi Chongfeng had made a scene with Yu Qixin for him and even followed Elder Luo personally to the domain outside the desolate realm to find him. Just for that alone, Xiang Beifei felt it was necessary to help Yi Chongfeng become an associate professor. There were not many people in the world who truly cared for Xiang Beifei, but Yi Chongfeng was certainly one of them. He asked again, "How many club points are needed to help you become an associate professor?" Since club points are one of the criteria for assessment of academic titles, Yi Chongfeng had met all the other criteria. He just needed one more club point. "It's still a long way off." Yi Chongfeng shook his head helplessly. "To be assessed as an associate professor, you at least need to push the student club you lead into the top 10. Do you know how many points the top 10 clubs had last semester? Tell me, no matter how high the points are, I can handle it," Xiang Beifei said calmly. Last semester, the 10th place had 29,876 points. The first place was Yu Qixin's Cold Sha Club with 52,463 points, and Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes was at -256. Xiang Beifei thought he was calm, but then he realized something was amiss. Last year, Mr. Yi wasn't at the school, and the students in the club he was responsible for were so indulgent that they managed to lose points to such a disastrous extent. The 10th place was nearly 30,000, and their club's points were actually negative. Were the students of this club continuously losing? So, does the score reset to 0 at the start of each semester? Not exactly, it just subtracts the last digit, Yi Chongfeng said. This means the current 10th place has 2,987 points. First place has 5,246 points, and Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes is at -25 points. Currently, Xiang Beifei has scored 120 points, so Leisure Clouds and Wild Crane's score has already risen to 95 points. It's just that the total score hasn't been updated yet. But Mr. Yi, you need to recruit more people. If we follow this trend, we need to amass at least 10,000 points each semester to squeeze into the top 10. You can't expect me to shoulder it all alone, can you? Xiang Beifei can score a maximum of 30 points a day in the combat arena, which adds up to only 3,000 points in 100 days. It's like trying to put out a fire with a cup of water, and he can't go every day. I'm doing my best. But as you know, last year Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes ranked terribly low. Such a dismal rank isn't attracting new students, and the old students scorn joining. I'm quite helpless these days. Do you have any excellent candidates to recommend? Yi Chongfeng said with a headache. The insignia of Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes, languishing at the bottom, really has no appeal to new students. Those with great talents who could contribute to the club are snatched up by other higher-ranked clubs. There's no chance for them. And students with lower talents, once recruited into the club and sent to the combat arena, would lose and even cost points. It was truly miserable. Yi Chongfeng was trying hard to recruit members, But unfortunately, being away from school for the entire past academic year had greatly tarnished his reputation. When others heard that his club had scored negative 256 points last year, nobody wanted to join. I can bring in 2 people, but I don't know anyone else, Xiang Beifei said. Are they your dorms, SR? Yi Changfeng asked. No, 2 grade S awakeners whom I trust. One is a freshman, a close brother of mine. The other is a sophomore girl, you could say my childhood friend, with exceptional combat skills. Xiang Beifei was planning to pull Lu Jiwei and Kong Xiuwen into it. Lu Jiwei is actually very strong. She just doesn't show off in front of Xiang Beifei. It was good timing since she mentioned leaving her previous group, so it was a perfect opportunity to bring her over. Although Kong Xiuwen's cultivation isn't high, Xiang Beifei definitely wanted to look after this best friend he had grown up with. Kong Xiuwen didn't know about Xiang Beifei's capabilities and was always thinking of using his grade S system abilities to protect Xiang Beifei, a grade N, from being bullied. Xiang Beifei had to pull his cultivation up.
Okay, Ye Changfeng nodded.
Besides fighting in the arena, are there any other ways to quickly accumulate points? Preferably methods that offer more points. Scoring only 30 points a day in the arena is too stingy. Then you'll have to take on missions. There's a bunch listed on the mission board. Points act as currency among students, allowing for bounties to be placed. Teachers also post tasks for students to help find special desolate beasts from the outer domains as teaching tools. Would you like to try? Yi Changfeng asked. Student points are extremely important at the Martial Arts College of Liangzhou University. You can earn points in the fighting ring or help with missions to accumulate points. You can also use points to offer bounties for others to help you complete the difficult system tasks. I can do that. Xiang Beifei nodded. After all, running around in the wilds beyond the domain would be beneficial for him, and this kind of experience was always something to be learned. All right, I'll find an easy mission for you next weekend. It will be in the wilderness outside the domain. You'll meet the other 3 advanced students, and I'll have them go with you. That way you'll be safer, said Yi Changfeng. After a moment, Yi Changfeng added, It's really rare to see freshmen setting up a challenge in the ring. After all, it's too showy and it's easy for others to study and see through you. Yi Changfeng touched his forehead, realizing that he had been underestimating Xiang Beifei. He knew that Xiang Beifei was powerful and that accumulating 100 points wasn't difficult for him, but he had estimated it would take at least about a month. Unexpectedly, Xiang Beifei had managed to do it by Friday after only deciding to on Monday. No problem, I'm just a fake sword cultivator after all. Let them study me as much as they want. Xiang Beifei held the Ronin sword given to him by Yi Changfeng and made some gestures with it. The Ronin sword gleamed, its edge sharp and clear. If the sword wasn't working, he would just throw it away and use his fists instead. You still can't be careless. Right now, you're going up on the stage and chopping with a sword, but that's not real swordsmanship. If you want to hide your identity, pretending to be a sword cultivator when you're actually a body cultivator, you should try to make it as convincing as possible. I'll just teach you a couple of moves in swordsmanship so that when you're on stage performing the moves, it should help you disguise yourself better and not be seen through, Yi Changfeng said. In the fighting ring, there are teachers on rotation as referees every day, and many of them are very observant. If they uncover the disguise, they will train their own club students to target Xiang Beifei. Since Xiang Beifei was disguising himself as a sword cultivator to earn points for the club, Yi Changfeng naturally wanted to give him a helping hand. Okay, then I'll learn a couple of moves. Xiang Beifei's cultivation was high, and just chopping at the opponent with a sword could make the opponent crash down like falling flowers swept by a stream, but to a real swordsman familiar with swordsmanship, it would be easy to tell that he was not a true sword cultivator. Learning a couple of moves to disguise himself would be fine. All right, I'll teach you. Yi Changfeng waved his hand, and the entire classroom suddenly changed into a different scene, simulating a blue sky with white clouds, and they stood atop a mountain peak. There was a banyan tree, and it was deep autumn, with dried leaves flying around, and a gentle breeze coming from all directions, causing their clothes to rustle. My sword Dao is rarely passed on, because none of the students can comprehend it, No one has ever surpassed me in the sword Dao. Yi Changfeng was an SR-level awakener, and among the sword cultivators of this level, he was the only one. The invincible lone swordsman? Xiang Beifei asked in surprise. You could say that. Yi Changfeng was very confident in his path of swordsmanship, and this was not self-flattery. Thus far, none of the students he had taught had impressed him as sword cultivators. Sword cultivators were rare to begin with, and SR-level sword cultivators like him were even rarer. Of course, Yi Changfeng wasn't very optimistic about Xiang Beifei's talent for the sword Dao. Despite the young man's oddities, an awakener not from the sword cultivator system probably couldn't grasp the essence of swordsmanship. Being able to learn the basics would be good enough. Yi Changfeng didn't expect Xiang Beifei to comprehend his profound and inscrutable sword intent. After all, a true swordsman must nurture his sword as well as his spirit. Especially for a swordsman, comprehending sword intent was something that insiders take years to understand, and for an outsider like Xiang Beifei, it was even less likely. My swordsmanship is called Heavenly Sword 9 Traces. I'll only teach you the first move. You're not a true sword cultivator and lack the talent for it, so I reckon even the first move will take you a long time to master. But that's okay, you only need it to conceal your identity. Yi Changfeng held an ancient longsword in his hand, a peculiar sword radiating sword qi, revolving with a mysterious aura. The blade was worn and scarred as if it had witnessed eons, yet it seemed to behold the world's vicissitudes with an ethereal presence. Swordsmanship is about an artistic conception. A person moves, their heart is still. The sword moves, its momentum is still. Footwork relies on stillness to command motion, while swordsmanship seeks stillness in motion. This is the opening stance of Heavenly Sword 9 Traces, with leaves falling like rain. The sword light pierces the sky. Yi Changfeng's sword followed his movements, and in the flowing silhouette, the shape of the sword flickered naturally, looking as if the sword was part of his body, scattering about freely, transcending the mundane. In his openness, there was an unrestrained quality, and in his agility, a silent depth.
Xiang Beifei yached Yi Changfeng in amazement.
When Yi Changfeng performed his swordsmanship, that immortal sword seemed to merge with him, transforming into a mysterious sword intent, an artful swordsmanship imbued with the unique ethos of an immortal. He knew Yi Changfeng was proficient with a sword, but he had never seen Yi Changfeng's swordsmanship, as he didn't need to rely on a sword to contend with enemies. He now understood that Yi Changfeng was more of a swordsman from Legends of Immortals, capable of breaking mountains with a single sword and knocking on the heavenly gate with 10,000 swords. Such might in the use of the sword left Xiang Beifei in awe. He focused on every motion made by Yi Changfeng, memorizing the movements and the method of circulating spiritual power, then pondered them. In just the blink of an eye, the grand display of sword moves had ended. Elegant and swift, Yi Changfeng sheathed his sword and said to Xiang Beifei, "This is the first form. You can try it now. You don't need to grasp my sword intent. You just need to learn the basic sword moves. If you can bluff people, that's enough." "Good," Xiang Beifei mused as he picked up the Ronin's sword in his hand. He recalled Yi Changfeng's movements, learned by analogy, allowed him to easily immerse himself in the state of mind that Yi Changfeng had just demonstrated. Suddenly, he seemed to have realized something, and then he swung his sword. Leaves fluttering, sword light hanging in the sky. A flying sword stirred up a mountain of falling leaves. The leaves followed the sword, floating freely. In the chaotic wind, he found a point of stillness, using tranquility to control motion. The sword's momentum surged, like a pebble in a dead pool creating thousands of ripples. The drifting of the leaves turned into the movement of his sword. The falling leaves drove the sword's force. The sword qi attracted the leaves, complementing and cherishing each other, accompanying side by side. Whoosh! Xiang Beifei was completely drawn into the state of mind by Yi Changfeng's sword. His Ronin sword moved unpredictably, ethereal and refined. After a while, he thought of his rapid flame and suddenly pondered, what if he applied the method of operating rapid flame to the sword? What would happen? After all, he was not strictly a sword cultivator, so trying it casually wouldn't hurt. Driven by curiosity, he covered the blade with spiritual power. At the same time, in the instant when the edge of the sword trembled, the spiritual power rubbed together rapidly, igniting instantly. But because his sword was leading these flames, the burning was very subtle, like a faint red glimmer. Spiritual power turned into sword chi, slicing through a withered leaf. The brilliance of the sword split across the thin side of the leaf, actually separating the face and the back of the leaf. Oh, this sword chi is quite formidable. Xiang Beifei retracted his sword, looking at the severed leaf with great interest. It was neat, with clear veins, like it could be used as a specimen. Wow, so sword chi is this sharp. Using this sword glow to chop firewood would definitely be super efficient. However, on the other side, Yi Changfeng, who had been carefree, was also stunned in place. He couldn't believe his eyes as he watched Xiang Beifei. This is sword chi? You! Yi Changfeng's pupils shrank, and he couldn't help exclaiming. He was shocked by the red sword chi that Xiang Beifei had produced at first attempt. For a moment he thought he had seen wrong. Even students who have awakened the S-rank Sword Dao system need at least a year to condense Sword Chi. Not to mention, it took him, an SR-rank Sword Dao genius, 2 months to cultivate Sword Chi. But why was Xiang Beifei's spiritual power so odd? His spiritual power actually turned into Sword Chi directly? He's just started practicing swordsmanship, right? To be able to display Sword Chi on the first try? Yi Changfeng took a sharp breath, his mind suddenly unable to grasp the concept. It felt so unreal. His dignity as the #1 genius of SR Sword Dao was shaken. He had originally thought that an outsider like Xiang Beifei, at best, could learn a little bit of the surface knowledge. He didn't even expect Xiang Beifei, who was not a real sword cultivator, to understand much, and he thought of casually pointing out his flaws later, telling him where the shortcomings of his sword moves were. It wouldn't matter if he couldn't learn them. After all, you are not a real swordsman. But he never expected. The fool was me. Yi Changfeng stared at Xiang Beifei incredulously. The most important thing was that leaf. Any swordsman can use a sword edge to split a leaf, but many can only manage to cut the leaf in half from the middle. They absolutely cannot make a cut from the thin, less than 2 mm thick side of a leaf, separating the face of the leaf from the back. But Xiang Beifei did it. How is it possible? He isn't even a sword cultivator. He isn't even considered a body cultivator. So how did he accomplish what many sword cultivators wouldn't be able to achieve in a year? He must be a freak cultivator. Heavenly Sword 9 Traces. The Tao of the Immortal Sword. Quite insightful. Xiang Beifei sheathed his sword, savoring the sword intent from just now. He felt that if he executed this sword intent with strong cultivation, he could definitely split a mountain with one strike. Then if a swordsman like Mr. Yi ventured into the outer desolate lands and struck down desolate beasts with his sword, one slash could cause the earth to quake and mountains to shudder, banishing the desolate beasts. Such a state of mind. The mere thought of it filled Xiang Beifei with admiration. Mr. Ye's swordsmanship is truly powerful. I am ashamed to admit my own inferiority, Xiang Beifei sincerely said.
Yi Changfeng.
Is he praising me? Why does it sound like he's belittling himself? At this moment, a line of text appeared on Yi Changfeng's system interface. Detected a genius-level sword cultivator, with extremely thorough understanding of swordsmanship, very suitable for learning Heavenly Sword 9 Traces. Adaptability not weaker than the host. System evaluating. Xiang Beifei possesses great talent for sword cultivators, capable of comprehending sword intent that can be inherited through Heavenly Sword 9 Traces. System evaluating. System initiates task. Xiang Beifei's talent is sufficient to practice Heavenly Sword 9 Traces to a new stage, if the host provides a bit of guidance to comprehend Xiang Beifei's sword intent. Once it is turned to one's own use, it can help the host break through the current realm's shackles. What? Yi Changfeng was shocked as he looked at his system interface. His SR system had actually issued a new task. Although the SR system was powerful, much more so than an S level, advancements would start to slow down after reaching the God refining stage. He wasn't like Elder Luo, that strange awakener whose realm was erratic and didn't follow conventional wisdom, capable of nonchalantly hacking his way through SSR-level challenges. Yi Changfeng was currently only at a mid-god refining strength. His sword intent had also reached a bottleneck, needing experiences from other aspects to advance. But he had never expected that the system would consider Xiang Beifei capable of helping him break through this sword intent barrier. All right, learning this move will be enough for me to put on a show on stage, and that's sufficient. Xiang Beifei contently sheathed the Ronin sword, preparing to head back and seize the opportunity to put on a show in the fighting arena. Not enough.
Ye Changfeng suddenly shouted.
Xiang Beifei was startled by Yi Changfeng's sudden outburst and blurted out, "Why did you shout so loudly?" His cultivation was limited, and he couldn't see the detailed tasks on Yi Changfeng's system, so he was unaware of the situation with Yi Changfeng's system, which was similar to what had happened with Lu Hong. "No, you have to try my Heavenly Sword 9 Traces again." Realizing he had lost his composure, Yi Changfeng regained his senses and said urgently, "I thought learning the first move would take you a long time, but I hadn't expected that you are actually a 1-in-a-million sword Dao genius. You're suited to practice my swordsmanship. No, for now, practicing just this one move is enough. I need to master what Elder Luo has taught first, then grasp Professor Guo's defense skills. Biting off more than one can chew is not wise." Xiang Beifei responded very seriously. His own cultivation seemed to have no restrictions, and even though a person's system technique is most suitable for its host, Xiang Beifei understood the systems too well. He could practice many of the techniques provided by others, provided they were taught in detail. He could even comprehend them to a perfect state. If it was swordsmanship comprehension, relying on learn by analogy and studying intently, he would certainly be able to master it. But Xiang Beifei was clear that he shouldn't be too greedy, needing to focus on the present and master what needed to be mastered before learning new skills. Jack of all trades, master of none, is a great taboo. Yi Changfeng insisted, unwilling to give up. "But you are a natural-born sword cultivator." Xiang Beifei looked at Yi Changfeng curiously and tapped the sword in his hand, saying, "Mister, Yi, you do realize I'm just pretending to be a sword cultivator, right? I'm doing it to hide my identity, remember? It was you who suggested that I make my disguise more convincing by teaching me a move. He is not even a swordsman. That Ronin sword was given to him by Yi Changfeng to conceal his identity."
Ye Changfeng.
His original intention was indeed to help Xiang Beifei better disguise himself as a sword cultivator. But the problem was, at that time, how could he have known this guy was a 1-in-a-million sword Dao genius? This pretend swordsman was comprehending sword intent more powerfully than true swordsmen. How was that fair to them? "All right, I'm heading back now. See you, Mr. Yi." Xiang Beifei left the classroom with the Ronin sword, preparing to continue practicing Professor Guo's counterblade. Although swordsmanship is powerful, it's an offensive ability, and Xiang Beifei has his fists. His attack capabilities were enough, so swordsmanship was optional. Watching Xiang Beifei's retreating figure, Yi Changfeng's breathing became somewhat agitated. He was originally a sword cultivator with an excellent state of mind, but now he was also unsettled. A 1-in-a-million sword Dao genius with no interest in swordsmanship. How could he bear this? Yi Changfeng didn't say another word and turned to run towards the small woods in the school. For such a major matter, he had to find Elder Luo. Only if Elder Luo spoke would Xiang Beifei listen. At the beginning of the school term, Xiang Beifei was already pegged for the spot, but Elder Luo just had to interfere, which was so unfair. Yi Changfeng was haggling with Elder Luo. "You little rascal. Your temper has grown recently, hasn't it? Do you still see me as your master?" Elder Luo glared, tossing melon seed shells at Yi Changfeng. The melon seed shells whizzed through the air like bullets, striking Yi Changfeng's joints and causing him pain. Even though Yi Changfeng was a university professor, in front of Elder Luo, he still couldn't avoid being hit without any chance of retaliation. "He's your junior now," Elder Luo said. "Guo tried to steal a disciple from me and I sent him packing with a scolding. You keep whining, I'll smack you next. He may be the junior, But that doesn't prevent him from learning my swordsmanship.
Ye Changfeng argued urgently.
If there was someone suitable to practice their system's cultivation technique, teachers like them would generously teach it. Not to mention the current situation was special, forcing him to take it seriously. Why bother with your measly swordsmanship? Why don't you focus on learning it yourself? Even an 18-year-old kid knows not to bite off more than he can chew and to concentrate on one thing. You're a teacher and you still don't get that? Besides, he hasn't even awakened the Sword Dao system, so why bother teaching him swordsmanship? Isn't that redundant? Elder Luo cracked melon seeds, having a fair understanding of Yi Changfeng's system as his master. Yi Changfeng said urgently, "But he's truly a swordsmanship prodigy. We can't let that go to waste. Even if he hasn't awakened the Sword Dao system, learning swordsmanship would not be hindered. A system is just an aid. True swordsmen rely on cultivating their state of mind and sword intent." Cultivate their state of mind? Elder Luo chuckled dismissively at Yi Changfeng. Is that what you are referring to with your current state of mind? Yi Changfeng felt quite embarrassed. He had been so perturbed by Xiang Beifei that he couldn't keep calm. But he still pleaded, "Elder Luo, could you persuade him for me? After he learns the cultivation techniques from you and Professor Gua, then he could learn mine. Any conditions he wants I'll accept. He listens to you." Elder Luo, cracking melon seeds, asked doubtfully, "Why are you so eager to pass on your swordsmanship to him? Aren't you usually composed? What's making you lose your cool like this today?" Yi Changfeng wiped his sweat. Trusting Elder Luo, there was no reason to hide such matters, so he said bluntly, "To tell the truth, it's about a system task. Just now, he displayed his sword intent in front of me, and then my system felt Xiang Beifei was more suited to learning my heavenly sword 9 traces than me, requiring me to comprehend his sword intent to improve myself." He felt embarrassed even after saying it, almost finding it laughable. "Heh, aren't you ashamed to say that? Your own awakened system thinks someone else is more suitable for learning swordsmanship than you? Is the Sword Dao system yours or his?" Elder Luo said with disdain. Yi Changfeng rubbed his forehead. Having been mocked by his own master, he felt quite helpless. But still he said, "Elder Luo, please help me out. He doesn't seem very interested in learning swordsmanship and has no interest in mine, but I really need to convince him." Whether it was to uncover this 1 in 10,000 swordsmanship talent or to complete his own system's task, he was desperate for Xiang Beifei to take an interest in Sword Dao. Elder Luo waved his hand in irritation and said, "Are you dumb? Even if your swordsmanship doesn't appeal to him, you have the ability of sword flight. Xiang Beifei is working hard on his cultivation, constantly learning to compensate for his weaknesses. If spiritual power is lacking, he studies spiritual power. If defensive power is lacking, he studies defense. Swordsmanship is a form of attack. He has his own methods of attack. There's no need for swords. But what he currently lacks is the ability to fly, right? Why don't you just tell him you can teach him sword flight?" A light bulb went off for Yi Changfeng. "Right, sword flight. I can't believe I forgot that. This would definitely attract him. Good idea, thanks Elder Luo." Yi Changfeng stood up, ready to find Xiang Beifei. But Elder Luo pulled him back by his collar with a warning. "Let me tell you, he must first practice spiritual power and get that right. Then, after mastering defensive power, your swordsmanship can only be third in line. Things must be prioritized carefully. Don't mislead the kid. Understand?" "I understand." Yi Changfeng nodded sincerely and then hurried off. Elder Luo squinted comfortably, humming to himself, "Daring to compete with me for a disciple, I won't let you off easily. To learn, one must indeed start with my spiritual power. No cutting the line." He looked at his system interface, which had popped up a few days ago with a system prompt. Current detection reveals that Xiang Beifei's mastery of spiritual power is more suitable than the host's. The host must teach Xiang Beifei the methods of utilizing spiritual power and gain improvement experience from him. This will allow the host's spiritual power casting methods to be upgraded by a rank. Yi Changfeng would never have imagined that just before, Elder Luo was ridiculing his situation with the system, but in fact, Elder Luo's system had the same issue days ago. Initially, Elder Luo had merely taught Xiang Beifei spiritual power casually, without any hidden agenda, just wanting to properly cultivate him towards success. But unexpectedly, after Xiang Beifei had mastered spiritual power and managed to burn melon seed shells with it, his leisure system suddenly issued such a task. Elder Luo wasn't calm at that moment either, so now he really treasures Xiang Beifei. Just the other day, Professor Gua came to poach him, and he had already scolded him once, and today Yi Changfeng tried to stir up trouble and got a scolding from him too. This kid is truly a crafty genius. Elder Luo couldn't help but mutter. But he soon became proud again. Haha, everything follows an order of first come, first served, how to say. I discovered this child Xiang Beifei first, so of course, he should master my spiritual power first. I won't allow anyone to cut in line. Elder Luo was extremely happy. Suddenly he realized something. This little guy, with such terrifying talent, whatever he learns, he becomes a genius at. Even Chongfeng's system rated him like that, so once he masters defensive power, Wooden Gua's system. As he was saying this, suddenly Professor Gua's voice came from outside the woods. Elder Luo, big news. Big news. You won't believe what happened to my system. Xiang Beifei learned my counterattack, and my system seems to have gone haywire. Professor Gua's voice arrived before he did. He and Elder Luo were close as life and death, so they weren't formal about system matters, and they usually helped each other complete system tasks when needed. Elder Luo was stunned for a moment. Then he couldn't help but laugh and cry, "Really now?" Xiang Beifei had already set a learning plan for himself. First to study spiritual power, then defensive power, and then to learn Yi Changfeng's swordsmanship. He had been convinced by Yi Changfeng. Sword flight sounded amazing. That was like adding a flying ability to himself. Yi Changfeng hurriedly threw out this sugar-coated cannonball, and Xiang Beifei immediately became interested. Sword intent or not, that wasn't the point. The main thing was to learn swordsmanship to be able to fly. Cool, stylish, and it could also provide a means of self-protection. Yi Changfeng left quite satisfied, and Xiang Beifei also accepted it with great satisfaction. A win-win situation. Mr. Yi is so eager to teach me swordsmanship. Doesn't his system also have that kind of task? Xiang Beifei wondered. He couldn't see Yi Changfeng's system tasks, but he could see Elder Luo's. Elder Luo's system was quite peculiar, taking a random upgrade and losing power, which Xiang Beifei could see. Elder Luo's leisure system on the judgment task about spiritual power, Xiang Beifei already knew. He was working hard to master spiritual power, intending to pay back Elder Luo as well. Yi Changfeng's 10,000 sword system likely worked the same way. If he could learn swordsmanship and help him, Xiang Beifei had no objections. However, he still didn't rush to learn Yi Changfeng's swordsmanship. For him, what to learn wasn't the priority. The priority was to take it step by step, not to achieve it all at once. Learn one thing first, then move on to another. Once Xiang Beifei returned, he went to find Lu Jiwei. Lu Jiwei had already left her own club, and the moment she heard Xiang Beifei's Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes Club was recruiting, she immediately came running over. "Wherever you are, there I'll be. Following you is definitely no loss," Lu Jiwei said with a grin. "Are you sure? Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes isn't exactly a top club. Once you join, it will get better," Lu Jiwei said. Xiang Beifei shrugged, the two of them chatting in the hallway under the dormitory building. At this moment, Li Zimu passed by and asked, "Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes? Xiang Beifei, have you joined Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes?" "Yes," Xiang Beifei said. Li Zimu carried a book in his hands and asked, "Can I join?" "I thought you had already joined some other club," Xiang Beifei said, puzzled. SR-level freshmen, after all, were the talents that every club fought over, many of them clamoring to get an SR Awakener to preside over their club. Unlike them at Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes, apart from the teacher in charge who was SR, the people from other clubs were quite miserable. Li Zimu helplessly spread his hands. "It's just too many choices. I don't know which one to pick. I always feel that many clubs' recruitment goals are just for show." Li Zimu had the ability to perform penetrating writing, able to discern a person's character from their handwriting, often looking at the signatures and other elements in the posters of those clubs. He had a rough idea of what kind of people were in each club. Then why do you want to join my club? It's more convenient being around someone familiar. Li Zimu looked contemplatively at Xiang Beifei, then smiled. And actually, I don't think any club with you in it would be weak. He had always found Xiang Beifei to be unique, because on their first day of school, Long Guoqing had suffered a setback in the dormitory. You really think highly of me? Xiang Beifei said. So, can I join? Li Zimu asked. Xiang Beifei thought for a while and said, should be all right. That's great. Just tell me a time next time, and I'll come for the interview. Li Zimu nodded politely to Lu Jiwei, then went back to the dormitory. In fact, the interview wasn't really necessary. Although Li Zimu was a person who liked quiet reading, and his awakened system was literary, his strength was not to be underestimated. He was much stronger than he appeared, easily joining any club he wanted. Amazing! Is that the SR from your dorm? Lu Jiwei exclaimed. Yes. He looks pretty good. He didn't cause trouble for you, did he? Lu Jiwei asked. What do you think he would do to me? Xiang Beifei asked. I heard SRs are incredible, Lu Jiwei pondered and said with a giggly smile. But now I think any SR that shares a dorm with you might be quite miserable. Last time, Xiang Beifei had single-handedly subdued an SR at the Meridian opening stage, and a new SR in the mid-chi controlling stage was no match for him. I'm not unreasonable. Xiang Beifei was looking around. Weird? Where's Kong Shouwen? Maybe he's training in his dormitory space? Lu Jiwei suggested. I asked his roommate. He's gone out, not in the dormitory, Xiang Beifei said. But at that moment, from the other end of the dormitory corridor, suddenly came a cheer, as if a crowd of students had gathered around to see what the excitement was about. So there are still people defending the N-tier system. Ha ha! The freshman is over his head. Nyoxia, teach him a lesson. The voices sounded quite jarring. Xiang Beifei furrowed his brow and quickly walked toward the crowd. Soon he saw Kong Shouwen lying on the ground with a wounded face, looking unwilling, while his opponent was a student in the late stages of the chi-controlling S-tier, apparently a sophomore. I'll tell you, I just despise that N-tier freshman, so what? His system is a waste, and when he reaches the Meridian opening stage, could he be stronger than me? Nyoxia looked down at Kong Shouwen he had knocked down, also with a face full of pride. With your cultivation level, you still think of standing up for him? Who do you think you are? Nyoxia kicked toward Kong Shouwen, but his foot never fell, as he himself was already flying backward. Xiang Beifei stood in front of Kong Shouwen, staring down Nyoxia, who had already fainted. The crowd was also shocked. They didn't even notice how Xiang Beifei had made his move. It's that freshman. Damn. The rumors are actually true. He's so strong. The other students began talking amongst themselves as they saw Xiang Beifei's presence for the first time, and at that moment no one dared mention body cultivation anymore as Nyoxia, an S-tier awakener in the late stages of chi controlling, was directly defeated. Who would dare provoke him? From a distance, the dormitory supervisor, a woman, impatiently shouted, Hey, are you done fighting? I still have to binge-watch my shows. She was summoned to testify as fights among students of the martial arts college were quite common, and she often had to do these tasks. When the conflicts escalated, she also became impatient. Xiang Beifei glanced around, but didn't speak, just helped Kong Shouwen off the ground. Kong Shouwen seemed quite astonished. He had only seen Xiang Beifei flash by, and then Nyoxia was down. The way Xiang Beifei executed his punch truly surprised him. Are you all right? Xiang Beifei asked. Kong Shouwen came back to his senses and then shook his head. Let's go. Xiang Beifei pulled Kong Shouwen away from the crowd and sat down on a bench by the flower beds behind the dormitory. Why did you get into a conflict with him? Xiang Beifei asked. Kong Shouwen sat on the bench, his head lowered, silent. After a moment, he finally said, I just overheard that guy saying he was going to take you down quietly with his S-tier system, claiming an N-tier like you wouldn't notice. I was worried you'd be at a disadvantage, so I warned him, but I didn't expect. He couldn't beat him. I thought, in college, it was still my role to protect you, Kang Xiaowen said with a self-deprecating smile. But it seems you no longer need my protection now. Xiang Beifei nodded thoughtfully. Have you been keeping this from me all along? Kang Xiaowen turned to look at Xiang Beifei. Since the beginning of the school year, just a week ago, he had never believed those rumors, thinking that Xiang Beifei's admission to Liangzhou University must have been due to Xiang Tianqing having connections. However, the punch Xiang Beifei had thrown just now made Kang Xiaowen realize that most of those rumors were probably true. I just felt there was no need to mention these things to you, Xiang Beifei said. I've been working hard on my cultivation for the past few months in order to get into university. Is that really the case? Kang Xiaowen rested his elbows on his knees, his hands supporting his forehead, looking very dejected. These past few days, I've been using hairs to improve my intelligence. I've also been thinking about those rumors, and your punch just now suddenly made me understand everything. The punch Xiang Beifei had thrown seemed to have instantly unlocked all the doubts in Kang Xiaowen's mind. You have a high IQ and scored well on the college entrance exam. When people first said you were powerful, that you had been to the outer desolate lands, I didn't quite believe them. You can beat people in the late stage of chi controlling, beat the triangular thunderkite. They said you were a body cultivation, which is why you possess such formidable strength. But that's because they don't understand you. However, I've always known your situation since we were kids. You are not a body cultivation. All these changes, it seems, started with the awakening system, Kang Xiaowen said. Kang Xiaowen had grown up playing with Xiang Beifei and knew what the old Xiang Beifei was like. It was impossible that Xiang Beifei was a body cultivation from a young age, since he had been so physically weak when he was younger and had to stand up for himself when bullied. Therefore, the only explanation was that Xiang Beifei had awakened an even higher system than his, but hadn't mentioned it to him. You're not an N-level awakener, are you? Kang Xiaowen asked. Xiang Beifei hesitated for a moment before saying, I don't know how to explain. I hate how I've suddenly become smart, Kang Xiaowen murmured, rubbing his hair. He was finding it increasingly difficult to see through Xiang Beifei, who no longer seemed to be the old friend who always needed his protection. He was now completely out of reach, only able to watch his back. A sense of defeat rose, uninvited, in his heart. This way, I feel like I can't keep up with you. It's as if, I don't know how to express it. Have we been drifting apart? Kang Xiaowen asked quietly. Not necessarily, Xiang Beifei sat down and said. I never intended to leave you behind, which is why I gave you those beast pills. But you no longer need my protection, said Kang Xiaowen morosely. That makes me feel very frustrated because I've always been the one standing in front of you. You don't always have to stand in front of me, Xiang Beifei smiled. You can try standing by my side, fighting shoulder to shoulder with me. Kang Xiaowen paused, then turned to look at his friend with whom he had grown up. You're so strong, it will probably be difficult to stand beside you in the future. Kang Xiaowen shook his head. I've said I won't leave you behind. No matter what, I'll help you. If you need more beast pills, I can help you find them. Those are definitely useful to you. I need you to stand by me, Xiang Beifei said. With Xiang Beifei's current strength, he could kill many chi-controlling period desolate beasts, and these beast pills could be purified and used by Kang Xiaowen to improve his cultivation. Xiang Beifei had calculated that with his help, given Kang Xiaowen's current progress, it wouldn't take a year for him to reach the late stage of chi-controlling. I haven't used up the beast pills you gave me last time, Kang Xiaowen said. When you've used them up, just say so. If you want to become stronger and keep up with my pace, you shouldn't be polite with me, Xiang Beifei said. Kang Xiaowen remained silent for a long while before finally saying, Thank you. I should be the one thanking you. Xiang Beifei patted Kang Xiaowen's shoulder. Thank you for always protecting me. Kang Xiaowen's body shook slightly. After a while, he said hesitantly, Now, I can only stand behind you and can't do much. Then please help me watch out for what's behind me, Xiang Beifei earnestly replied. A person can't just rush forward without thinking. You always need brothers and family to have your back, right? Kang Xiaowen was taken aback. Looking at Xiang Beifei, his eyes gradually brightening. Many things between them seemed to have never changed. After a while, Kong Xiuwen began to smile. You're right. The two had grown up together as close friends, trusting each other implicitly, with little quarreling. In battle, they could confidently leave their backs to each other without fear of one stabbing the other. Kong Xiuwen understood that if he wasn't strong enough to stand beside Xiang Beifei yet, at least he could still support him from behind and do what he was capable of. I joined a club called Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes. The teacher in charge is of the SR rank. If you want to become stronger, he's definitely the first choice. Are you interested in joining me? Yes. After a pause, Kong Xiuwen said firmly, I'll work hard not to hold you back. I know. I've always had confidence in you. Xiang Beifei smiled. On Saturday, Xiang Beifei informed Li Zimu and the others to go to the student club. Their Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes student club usually met near Yi Chongfeng's office. The office looked small from the outside, like a bathroom stall, but inside it was quite large, having been expanded by Yi Chongfeng. Yi Chongfeng's flying sword possessed various abilities, including spatial-type flying swords. While waiting, Kong Xiuwen seemed a bit nervous, constantly staring at Li Zimu. After all, Li Zimu was an SR and Xiang Beifei's roommate, well known in the school. When Kong Xiuwen saw Li Zimu summoned by Yi Chongfeng, he approached and asked, What's he like? Not bad, Xiang Beifei replied. I'm not very familiar with SR, and I'm unclear about the gap between him and you, Kong Xiuwen said. Lu Jiwei laughed out loud at his side. Hey little Kong, how weak do you think Beifei really is? Lu Jiwei had known Kong Xiuwen and Xiang Beifei since high school, though she was just a year ahead of them. Don't call me little Kong, Kong Xiuwen said displeased. Then little one, do you really think Xiang Beifei can't beat an SR? Lu Jiwei asked. Damn Lu Jiwei. Would it kill you to call me by my name?
Kong Xiuwen exclaimed irritably.
After a moment, he looked at Xiang Beifei uncertainly. Why are you interested in this club? I've heard it's not highly ranked. With Beifei and me here, the rankings will shoot up, Lu Jiwei said, clenching her fists. Last year, her club relied solely on her. Unfortunately, others squandered the points she earned, leaving her club in a dire situation, on par with Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes. But with Xiang Beifei, she felt much more confident. That's indeed true. With you as the tough girl, it shouldn't be a problem, Kong Xiuwen nodded. Deserving of a smack. Lu Jiwei kicked Kong Xiuwen in response. You two come in as well. I want to discuss some club matters with you first, Yi Chongfeng said, standing at the doorway. All right, Mr. Yi. Lu Jiwei and Kong Xiuwen quickly stood up and walked in with a face full of reverence. Although the Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes Club was somewhat subpar, the teacher was genuinely an SR, and Xiang Beifei had already informed them of Yi Chongfeng's absence from school last year, so Lu Jiwei and Kong Xiuwen understood the current situation. Xiang Beifei, wait outside for Sun Yushan and the others. I think they should be arriving soon. Get to know them in the meantime, Yi Chongfeng instructed, then went inside first. Xiang Beifei was soon left alone outside. About 10 minutes later, a girl walked in through the door. Host, Sun Yushan. S rank, 18 weapons system. State, Meridian opening initial stage. The girl named Sun Yushan was tall and slender, with her long hair tied in a ponytail, looking crisp and energetic. Upon seeing Xiang Beifei, she visibly hesitated and slightly frowned. Who are you? Someone new recruited by the club, Sun Yushan asked. My name is Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei? Are you that N-rank freshman? Sun Yushan was a postgraduate student, already graduated but staying on campus. Unlike other regular students, she didn't have to attend classes. She mostly undertook practical tasks in the desolate borderlands. She had heard of Xiang Beifei but had never met him. Yes, Xiang Beifei replied. Sun Yushan scrutinized Xiang Beifei and said, Mister, you mentioned that he wants you to accompany us to the desolate lands outside the domain. Are you sure? I think I could give it a try. Don't be too quick to decide, Sun Yushan said. I know about your encounter with the triangular thunderkite in the South Mountain 2nd District of the cultivated domain. Mr. Yuchi threw you into the desolate borderlands, and you completed your task. But the place we are going to this time is not like the South Mountain area at all. The desolate beasts there are much stronger than those in the South Mountain area, including some at the Meridian opening stage. I don't have a good feeling about you, a mid-chi controlling person. I know. You still don't understand. The minimum qualification for that place is late chi controlling, Sun Yushan said. Hey, Sun Yushan, at least I can defeat a triangular thunderkite. Don't be so aggressive when you talk. At this moment, a young man walked through the door. He looked somewhat chubby but was tall and robust, resembling a small hill. He plopped down on the sofa near Xiang Beifei, making the sofa seem to sink several inches. Host, Fan Kai, S-Rank, Earth Element Control System. Stage, Early Meridian Opening. In Fan Kai's system description, it seemed he could form his own powerful defensive power by condensing earth elements, gathering them for attack or defense, which was highly useful. No worries, I believe in you. It's rare for a new student to kill a desolate beast on their first trip to the outer domain. This time we go on the mission. If we encounter a Meridian opening stage desolate beast, just stay close to me. I'll block them. Oh, my name's Fan Kai. Although Fan Kai was a bit chubby and stout, he seemed to have a nice personality. He patted Xiang Beifei's shoulder with quite a force. Okay. Xiang Beifei nodded. However, Sun Yushan from the side said, going to the outer domain to kill desolate beasts and him hiding behind you? He might as well stay at home. Fan Kai nonchalantly said, it's his first time teaming up with others. He obviously needs to learn how to cooperate. Besides, even if a desolate beast comes, wouldn't you also hide behind me? I'm not the same as him. You block in front, and I can kill Meridian opening stage desolate beasts from a distance. He's into body cultivation. How can he attack from afar? Sun Yushan seemed very reluctant to include Xiang Beifei. We never expected him to kill desolate beasts anyway. Mr. Yi just wanted him to come along and gain some experience. It's normal for seniors to lead newbies. Why are you making such a big fuss? Fan Kai waved his hand, then smiled at Xiang Beifei. Don't mind her. She's just talkative. Fatso, who are you calling talkative? Sun Yushan glared at Fan Kai. Fan Kai shrugged his shoulders, chuckled, and didn't speak anymore. Why are you two arguing again? Yi Changfeng came out from inside, followed by Li Zimu and Kong Shouwen. Mr. Yi. Sun Yushan and Fan Kai both greeted him. Looks like you all know each other already. Good. Let me introduce my 3 new recruits. Lu Jiwei, an S-rank sophomore, Kong Shouwen, an S-rank freshman, Li Zimu, an SR rank freshman. Yi Changfeng introduced the club's 3 new members. SR rank. Sun Yushan and Fan Kai both looked at Li Zimu with surprise. Hello, Li Zimu said politely. Sun Yushan's eyes lit up. Mr. He can actually recruit an SR level freshman, SR rank freshman, whose awakened systems are incredibly powerful, are eye-catching wherever they go, and it's surprising they would join their modest club. Xiang Beifei's roommate. Xiang Beifei brought him, Yi Changfeng said, looking very pleased with the 3 new members. That's not bad. Is this Li Zimu also coming with us to the outer domain to see the world? Sun Yushan asked. I can protect him. Fan Kai glanced derisively at Sun Yushan. Li Zimu isn't ready. He has no experience and must follow the rules, fulfilling the requirements before trying to go to the outer domain. Xiang Beifei is a special case. He'll just go with you, Yi Changfeng explained. Sun Yushan seemed a bit disappointed. After a while, she eagerly asked, by the way, Li Zimu, are you a sword cultivator? Li Zimu shook his head slightly. No, why? Too bad. I thought you were the one Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes told me to patrol the mountains, Sun Yushan said. Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes told me to patrol the mountains? Yi Changfeng paused, then glanced somewhat wistfully at Xiang Beifei. Yes, Mr. Yi, I was at the fighting arena last night, and there was a sword cultivator called Leisure Clouds and Wild Cranes told me to patrol the mountains. Everyone is saying he's some SR rank freshman, Mr. Yi. You didn't even try to recruit him as a disciple. You're a leading figure in the sword cultivation system. Sun Yushan seemed very optimistic about leisure clouds and wild cranes told me to patrol the mountains, exclaiming, "That freshman is so powerful. I've been at the school for 5 years and never seen a freshman so unbeatable." Sun Yushan finished speaking and then glanced at Xiang Beifei, saying, "Mr. E, I'd rather take that late chi-controlling sword cultivator with me. At least he can use his sword to kill. He can do a lot of things, and we are going to the 5th area of the Western Mountains in the cultivated domain, where there are desolate beasts and others in the meridian opening stage. It's no child's play." In his words, Sun Yushan was full of admiration for the sword cultivator. Call me idle fish to patrol the mountains. Yesterday, he was genuinely shocked by the strength of this sword cultivator. And although he was only in the late stage of chi controlling, he had earned Sun Yushan's approval. Yi Changfeng touched his forehead and said, "Is that what you think? Yes, I'm also very good at using a sword, and you've taught me swordsmanship, but the sword of call me idle fish to patrol the mountains left a very deep impression on me yesterday. I don't know why, but I feel that when he made his move, his sword intent reached a height that I cannot match. The sword he swung out was almost perfect, and I even felt that he was releasing sword chi. I can tell you very confidently that this is a genuine sword Dao prodigy." In Sun Yushan's mind, the image of call me idle fish to patrol the mountains, wielding his sword chi last night lingered, unable to be erased. You don't know how shocked I was at that moment. He only swung out one sword, and his opponent couldn't resist. If he had swung out a second sword, I really don't know who in the late chi controlling stage could have beaten him. This person can't be anything less than an SR-level sword cultivator awakener. Sun Yushan was not stingy with his praise for call me idle fish to patrol the mountains. He wished he could use every word of praise for this sword cultivator prodigy. Yi Changfeng listened to Sun Yushan's words. His face twitched slightly. He only swung out one sword? That's because he only learned that one sword. This rascal really wasn't interested in learning more about swordsmanship. He hasn't even learned a second sword. How could he swing a second one? He glanced at Xiang Beifei once more, his look resembling that of a resented woman in seclusion. To Xiang Beifei, learning swordsmanship or not didn't matter. His strength was too formidable. He was already capable of defeating any student in the chi-controlling stage, and now he had learned a sword move, which made him even more formidable. In the combat arena, he had long been invincible. He just needed one sword. One sword was enough. Xiang Beifei looked at Yi Changfeng with an innocent face, not knowing what to say. "Mr. Yi, really? Such a sword Dao prodigy must be taken under your wing," Sun Yushan said earnestly to Yi Changfeng. "Taken under his wing? Do you think I don't want to? I've already put my pride aside. Okay?" Yi Changfeng was filled with resentment. Last time, he also excitedly followed Yang Luo to the combat arena, only to end up excited for nothing. "Yushan, do you know who call me idle fish to patrol the mountains is?" Yi Changfeng looked at Xiang Beifei with an ominous glare. "How would I know? Shouldn't Mr. Yi be the one to investigate? Mr. Yi, you need to seize the opportunity to recruit him. With him, our club will definitely soar," Sun Yushan said seriously. "Forget it. You all would find out sooner or later anyway," Yi Changfeng said helplessly. "Call me idle fish to patrol the mountains. That's Xiang Beifei." Sun Yushan was stunned for a moment and turned his head to look at Xiang Beifei. "What? He's a sword cultivator. But isn't he a body cultivator?" Sun Yushan thought he had heard wrong. Just now, she had not acknowledged Xiang Beifei and instead praised, "Call me idle fish to patrol the mountains." Now it turns out that idle fish and Xiang Beifei are the same person. He's a body cultivator, but to prevent being targeted by other clubs, he disguised himself as a sword cultivator for the competition, Yi Changfeng explained. In fact, Xiang Beifei wasn't really a body cultivator, but Yi Changfeng didn't delve into that. Revealing the fact about disguised sword cultivator to the club members wouldn't really matter. A disguised sword cultivator? So he doesn't really know how to use a sword? But that's impossible. I saw his swordsmanship last night. It was so superb. If he can't use a sword, how could he feign such sword intent? Sun Yushan simply couldn't accept this reality. Yesterday, she had clearly seen how impressive Idle Fish's swordsmanship was. Its aura so elusive. To think it was just a facade? If such sword intent could be so easily feigned, then what does that make of them, the sword users who labored for years to learn sword intent? Sun Yushan was momentarily stunned. Alright, you guys shouldn't go spreading it around. Keeping this a secret is beneficial for our club. It's best if others don't know which club the person competing in the arena belongs to. Yi Changfeng wasn't really worried about Sun Yushan and the others spreading the word, as he had various swords, each with a unique ability, including one that could keep secrets. With his SR level system combined with his god-refining cultivation, even if Sun Yushan and the others knew, they couldn't divulge it. Even Li Zimu, who is also SR level, couldn't divulge it, because his cultivation wasn't sufficient to contest Yi Changfeng. After a while, Yi Changfeng suddenly thought, actually, it might be fine if the secret slipped out. If everyone found out that Xiang Beifei was just a disguised sword cultivator and sent real sword cultivators to target this fake sword cultivator, and then Xiang Beifei learned his own swordsmanship and became a true sword cultivator, wouldn't that be a sight for them? With all these true and false elements, who can speak clearly? Sun Yushan muttered to herself as she looked at Xiang Beifei, saying, "Are you really a body cultivator disguised as a sword cultivator? Do you know how to use a sword? Are you talking about using this sword?" Xiang Beifei took out the glittering Ronin sword. Sun Yushan was completely stunned. It was this sword. This very sword. "I actually haven't fully learned swordsmanship," Xiang Beifei honestly said. Sun Yushan, to this extent and still not fully learned? Then what am I? A myriad of curses stampeded through her mind. You now understand why I wanted him to go to the Outland Desolate regions for training ahead of time, right? The arena is no longer enough for him. You two take good care of him and teach him real combat experience. I've already told him about the desolate beasts in the western mountain area of the cultivated domain and how to deal with them. I've also applied for the related tools from the Black Tech Department for you. But remember, desolate beasts will wander. Textbook theories and reality are different. Stay alert, Yi Changfeng said, earnestly advising them at the end. However, since Sun Yushan and Fan Kai were both in the Meridian Opening Realm as advanced students, taking Xiang Beifei along should not be a problem. Alrighty, Mr. Yi. Don't worry, no problem with me, Fan Kai said enthusiastically. His attitude towards Xiang Beifei was quite good. Hearing about Xiang Beifei's capabilities made him even more curious. Liangzhou University was located at the edge of the frontier of the Outland Desolate region, but technically speaking, it was still 20 kilometers away. After all, the Jiuzhou Alliance's frontline defense projects needed to be kept a distance from civilian areas, leaving a 20-kilometer gap in case the beast tide breached the defenses, which also allowed time for a response. Yet within these 20 kilometers was wild, uncultivated land filled with various traps specifically for desolate beasts. Ordinary people were not allowed to approach recklessly, they could only use the safe passages. Normal cultivators were allowed to enter the Outland Desolate region, such as Kong Daming with his restaurant, who would catch desolate beasts for gourmet dishes, or some pharmaceutical companies needing desolate beasts for research. However, if they were civilians, they would need to pass through the specified checkpoints, show their credentials, and register before they were allowed to leave Jiuzhou's safe boundaries. This was also to prevent any vulnerabilities in Jiuzhou's defenses, so generally only a few entrances and exits were maintained, with all other directions securely blocked. However, the students of Liangzhou University were an exception. Being an elite school meant to cultivate pioneers, their students had special privileges, though these privileges required a teacher's permission. Generally, teachers would set up teleportation arrays in the Outland Desolate region for their students, allowing them to bypass the Alliance's checkpoints without queuing. Stay tuned with Empire. Yi Changfeng's teleportation array was set in a rather concealed cave, guarded by various sword arrays, so ordinary desolate beasts couldn't get in, and even if they did, they couldn't use the teleportation array. I thought there was a fourth person, Xiang Beifei remembered. There were 3 advanced students in the Meridian Opening Realm, and typically, an official team exploring the Outland Desolate region would have at least 5 people with different abilities. But their club couldn't even gather that many. Zhuang Bo has his own practical task. It's just the 3 of us today, which is actually enough. The place we're going isn't too dangerous, Fan Kai said. Sun Yushan had been sullen ever since they left the school and had not spoken a word. It was probably because she realized that the SR Genius Sword Cultivator, Idle Fish, sent me to patrol the mountain, had suddenly turned into the imposter sword cultivator Xiang Beifei. The psychological gap was huge, hard to accept. An imposter sword cultivator, how could he manifest such sword intent? You've graduated as postgraduates but still stayed at the university. What do you usually do? Xiang Beifei asked. We're accumulating practical points because we all plan to pursue careers as developers. The developer teams from the JoJo Alliance have strict assessments, requiring a certain number of practical points. They list many types of desolate beasts, and for each type you need to kill a sufficient number, approximately 100 types. Typically, you have to kill 100 beasts of the Chi-controlling phase and 50 of the Meridian Opening phase. Only after amassing enough practical points are you allowed to join the team. Fan Kai, who was good-natured and plump, responded readily to Xiang Beifei's inquiries. The Alliance's developer teams aren't just accessible to graduates from elite universities. They also require specific selections. After graduation, if students want to join the developers, they must first hunt various common desolate beasts and master the methods of killing each type. Only then will their survival chances in the outside desolate domain be somewhat higher. Hunting common desolate beasts was relatively easy for them, but for the more formidable ones, they needed teachers to lead and instruct them. Yi Changfeng often took them out to teach them how to kill beasts that were akin in strength to those in the Meridian Opening Realm. However, Yi Changfeng generally only ensured their safety from the sidelines. The actual killing had to be done by Fan Kai and Sun Yushan themselves, who needed to complete the task on their own. In such matters, unless their lives were at stake, the teacher wouldn't intervene. Since developers needed to operate in the outside desolate domain, if they didn't learn to master the killing methods on their own, they would still lose their lives when facing the corresponding beasts even after becoming developers. Any university teacher with a sense of responsibility wouldn't assist students in cheating during developer practice, as it would only harm the students. Becoming a developer was no child's play, which Fan Kai and Sun Yushan were well aware of. Many elite students started practicing from their junior year to become developers, just like Fan Kai and others. After their junior and senior years, they still hadn't fully accumulated enough practical points and stayed to continue their studies, which was now their 2nd year of continuation. In the end, Fan Kai added, "Our practical points are different from your student points, but fortunately, this Wenlin mission is also one of our hunting targets. I've already killed 46 Wenlins, just short of 4. That's why Mr. Yi had you join us." Wenlin is a type of desolate beast, which is a bounty issued by the dissecting instructor of desolate beasts at the martial arts college. It offered 60 points and 10,000 yuan. So Yi Changfeng took the mission for them, letting Xiang Beifei follow Fan Kai and Sun Yushan. After completing the task, Xiang Beifei could take 60 points, Fan Kai and Sun Yushan would take practical points, and the money would be divided equally among the 3. Wenlin possesses the strength of the initial stages of Meridian Opening. Don't underestimate it, and be cautious here. Sun Yushan glanced at Xiang Beifei, then walked out of the cave. The view was a misty area that seemed to be a barren wilderness with tall grass and scattered jagged rocks everywhere. The sky was overcast, even the crescent sun was invisible. "Stay close to me. I'll protect you if it's dangerous," Fan Kai said to Xiang Beifei. "Sure, thanks." Xiang Beifei didn't take his safety for granted. Yuchishin had once thrown him into that area, at least confirming that the strength of the desolate beasts in that area was only at the Chi-controlling phase. But this time, they were clearly facing much stronger beasts. It was no joking matter. Carefully, Fan Kai searched among a pile of rocks, then found a stone and chuckled, saying, "Taking a shortcut, grab my arm." Sun Yushan quickly grabbed Fan Kai's arm, and Xiang Beifei also reached out to grab it. Then, a flash of spiritual power lit up in Fan Kai's hand, flickering as it transmitted into the stone. and abruptly pulled all three of them away. When they reappeared, they had already landed in a forest. This is my ability, moving using the earth element. My mobility and defense capabilities are strong, Fan Kai explained to Xiang Beifei. Actually, Xiang Beifei already knew this. Fan Kai's Class S Earth Element Control System had a very special ability, the escape technique, akin to Tu Xingsuan. He could condense the earth element into several stones and distribute these stones in various places. In times of danger, he could use the stones to instantly escape to the vicinity of another stone. Fan Kai often trained in the outside desolate domain, so he was familiar with the area and had buried stones at specific locations. Currently, he could control up to 8 stones, meaning he had 8 escape points. The distance between each escape point was about 10 kilometers. Any further would consume too much spiritual power, and he couldn't withstand it. 10 kilometers was the most suitable distance. The area we are heading to is called the City of the Old Days, Jingsu. Last time, a classmate mentioned there were sightings of Wenlin. From here on, we have to walk. I had set up an escape point in that direction, but it has disappeared, probably gnawed away by a soil-eating beast. Fan Kai led them about 60 kilometers away using the escape points he had set up. These points were usually unremarkable stones discarded on the ground but were also easily destroyed by desolate beasts. Fortunately, Fan Kai knew where they were going. The exchange students in school would stay in touch, sharing the locations of desolate beasts. If someone completed their task of killing a desolate beast but there were extras, they could inform others to finish the job. During this process, other students also used various means of teleportation to travel, sharing these points with those they were close to. These are teleportation arrays left by Zhuangbo. We've been to that area before. Although he isn't here now, they should still work. Fan Kai found a tree, dug under it for a while, and then unearthed an iron rod. He gestured, and quickly Xiang Beifei and Sun Yushan grabbed onto Fan Kai as he channeled his spiritual power into the rod and teleported again. What does the City of the Old Days, Jingsu, mean? Xiang Beifei asked. You'll see in a moment, Fan Kai replied. They appeared next to a pond, but they hadn't taken 2 steps when suddenly a tentacle shot out from the pond, grabbing towards them. Sun Yushan reacted quickly, her axe blade flashing, and the tentacle was chopped in half. Whoosh! A roar seemed to come from the pond, but a desolate beast did not appear. That was a 12-clawed beast, late-stage chi controlling. Don't mind it, we need to hurry, Sun Yushan said sternly. She was clearly used to such occurrences. One had to be fully alert while traveling in the wilderness, as desolate beasts could appear suddenly and from tricky positions. Xiang Beifei had experienced this before, but the desolate beasts in that area had been weaker and he had resolved the situation with a single punch. This time, with Fan Kai and Sun Yushan, both in the meridian opening phase, leading the way, he essentially didn't need to lift a finger. They walked along a desolate path for about an hour, casually dealing with many desolate beasts, all killed by Sun Yushan. Sun Yushan was skilled in 18 types of weaponry, and her weapons were no ordinary ones. Each was imbued with a special power and was extremely sharp. Soon, they came upon a dilapidated town. It was quite rare to see a human-inhabited town in the wilderness. This town. Xiang Beifei examined the town with surprise. Now do you understand what the City of the Old Days, Jingsu, means? Fan Kai said with a smile. I understand. Xiang Beifei had learned from the introduction to Defense of Juzhou that since ancient times, Juzhou had undergone various beast surges. Some surges had been terrifying enough to submerge a frontier town, killing all its inhabitants. Once a town was overtaken, if humans could not reclaim it, they had to fall back and establish a new defensive line deeper within. Consequently, the towns captured by desolate beasts had been abandoned. Your journey continues at Empire. The textbook hadn't specified the names, but among explorers, these towns had come to be called Cities of the Old Days. This town, let me see, based on timing analysis, was likely abandoned during the Great Beast Surge 100 years ago. It's called Jingsu City, about 3 kilometers from our current defensive front line in Juzhou. Fan Kai said as he held a tablet, scanning the ruined town with a sigh. In 100 years, a loss of 300 kilometers in territory had significantly reduced Zhuzhou's domain. In other words, their current location and the area they had just traveled through had all been within the safe bounds of Zhuzhou's protective range a century ago, but now it was Desolate Beast territory. For several years, Zhuzhou had been endeavoring to expand its territory, but reclaiming land from the wilderness, where desolate beasts had tainted the soil. Cleaning up required clearing deeply buried beast eggs. Failure to do so thoroughly could cause the eggs to hatch and lead to severe casualties. The parasitic methods of many desolate beast eggs were bizarre. Those lodged in vegetation were relatively manageable. However, eggs buried tens or hundreds of meters underground, capable of camouflage, posed significant challenges to eradication efforts. Moreover, the air here had been contaminated by desolate beasts. Some beast eggs were even dispersed in the air. Warriors could block them with spiritual power perception, but not all humans possessed such strong perception abilities. Therefore, reclaiming the lost towns was an arduous task, requiring initial environmental cleanup. The process was exceedingly slow. Zhuzhou's domain was not small and indeed quite expansive. The total length of all its borders was nearly 20,000 kilometers. Even expanding the borders by just 1 meter would necessitate the construction of over 20,000 kilometers of new defensive perimeters. A colossal undertaking. Constructing such lengthy defenses was immensely challenging, and expanding the defensive perimeter required significant effort. It wasn't possible to expand everything at once. It had to be done bit by bit. The process required pioneers to survey the terrain, assess the risks, kill all the desolate beasts in a region, then temporarily enclose it, and finally clear out the beast eggs. Your next chapter is on Empire. They had to clear the land hundreds of square meters at a time and set various observation periods for these lands, based on the hatching time of the desolate beast eggs. Some desolate beasts might hatch in a few days, while others might take several years. The observation periods were set to allow those eggs buried too deep to be detected to hatch first, then be killed, to prevent any from slipping through the net. If no desolate beast appeared on this land within 2 years, it could basically be considered a safe area, and then be integrated into the territory with additional defensive measures set up around this land. They also did not dare to expand too rapidly at once, even if the boundary could be expanded by a kilometer a year. However, once a massive wave of beasts erupted, breaking through the defenses, what could be lost was more than just a kilometer. Hence, all aspects had to be considered, making the process extremely troublesome. In short, losing land was easy, but reclaiming it was difficult, so the focus of the alliance was on strengthening defenses. Let's go. Wenlin is in this city. You've learned about Wenlin, right? Fan Kai asked. I have. Before coming for the mission, Xiang Beifei had learned very clearly about the desolate beast he was meant to kill. He even knew what it looked like. This time he was much better prepared than during his entrance assessment. Back then, he did not even know what a 3 souls desolate snake looked like and blindly went to kill it. But this time he was well prepared. Wenlin, a creature similar to a large spider, covered with barbs, able to change size. When small, it's as big as a palm. When large, it can grow over 2 meters tall. Its attacking method is bizarre, spitting out scales. It is said that normally, this desolate beast only eats other desolate beasts with scales, like those similar to pangolins or fish. After swallowing these scaled beasts, it would absorb their scales, store them, and shoot them out in various forms when in danger, as a means of attack and defense. They walked along the ruined path into the city of the old days. It was hard to say whether it still counted as a path because the place was covered with weeds and was barely recognizable. Some areas were even damaged by desolate beasts. However, it was obvious that quite a few apprentices had still come here, and some had even managed to carve out a small path. The houses from 100 years ago were very different from those of the present. Buildings erected a century ago were very tall, towering skyscrapers, but now many of those buildings were cut off midsection, crooked, some had already collapsed, and were covered with various creepers and thick moss. The city was in ruins, and the overcast sky was thick with heavy clouds, making it feel quite oppressive. Rustling. They hadn't gone far when they saw, from a distance, a tongue protruding from the window of a toppled building covered with dense vegetation, curling in a bird that was flying by in the sky. "There's a ghost giant snail in that building," Fan Kai said cautiously. Xiang Beifei also recognized the large tongue. "We don't need to bother with such a low-level desolate beast." Sun Yushan walked along the ruined street. Though it could hardly be called a street, still it somewhat resembled a decent path. The buildings on both sides had been eroded beyond recognition. The concrete seemed to have been gnawed away by some desolate beast, and many tall black trees had grown out from the windows. As they walked further, Sun Yushan and Fan Kai's experience proved to be richer than Xiang Beifei's, as they skillfully avoided certain areas that looked normal. Sometimes, although the road appeared flat and walkable, they would still detour. "Don't underestimate these roads. You see that stone path, it doesn't look special, but if you step on it, it will burst into flames," Fan Kai explained to Xiang Beifei. "Burst into flames? There's a flame insect hiding underneath that specializes in spitting fire. In the outer wastelands, don't think about killing every desolate beast you encounter. Our tools and energy are limited, and there's no need to provoke them. Just focus on completing your own task. Otherwise, it's easy to encounter unexpected complications," said Fan Kai. Xiang Beifei took note of all this. Although the textbook had covered a lot of knowledge, practice differed greatly from theory, and many things required experience to figure out. Without experience, one would simply step onto ground like this. Of course, facing a desolate beast like the flame insect, which was in the intermediate stage of qi controlling, wouldn't affect Xiang Beifei, but it was always best to avoid them if possible. Killing a desolate beast might seem simple, but it could cause a lot of noise, attracting other, more powerful desolate beasts. The first rule for pioneers was to keep a low profile, focus on one's own mission, and avoid killing insignificant weaker desolate beasts. The desolate beasts of the wilderness beyond were endless, and conserving one's strength was crucial. Otherwise, after having fun killing, one might encounter even stronger desolate beasts on the way back, and with depleted strength, escape would be impossible. As a senior, Fan Kai took good care of Xiang Beifei, always keeping him within sight and reminding him of precautions. Although he knew Xiang Beifei was highly talented, he was still only a qi-controlling martial artist, quite different from those at the Meridian opening stage. Xiang Beifei listened carefully to Fan Kai's instructions and noted them down. In areas he was unfamiliar with, Xiang Beifei would study seriously to make up for his shortcomings. In this process, Xiang Beifei also tried using spiritual power to detect the path. He spread his spiritual power around a distance of about 10 meters and quickly detected various desolate beasts, such as poisonous bugs and scorpions in nearby rocks and bushes. These beasts eyed them predatorily, but did not attack. They too measured the gap between their strengths. "I found a stream." Sun Yushan, who had been mostly silent while leading the way, found a ditch in the grass ahead with surprisingly clear water, looking drinkable. However, when Xiang Beifei extended his spiritual power into the water, he quickly noticed many strange transparent insects that seemed to be clarifying the water. If one drank this water, they would also swallow these insects. "Take out the bait," Sun Yushan said. "Here." Fan Kai took out 5 palm-sized fishes from his backpack. These fish were developed by the school's Black Technology Department as Wenlin bait, specially designed to target Wenlin. The fish had sharp scales on their bodies. Once in the water, the Wenlin could easily smell the scent from the scales and come to eat the bait. Once a Wenlin ate the bait, the scales would become part of it, and then a small trigger device would release a drug from the scales, killing the Wenlin. The dissection class teacher's reward task says it needs to be alive, Xiang Beifei reminded. "Don't worry, I've adjusted the dosage." Fan Kai scattered all 5 fishes into the clear water. The invisible insects in the water started moving towards the fish, but the fish had their own defenses. After darting around briefly, they quickly disappeared from view. "Now we just need to wait for the rabbit. If there's a Wenlin in this area, it will definitely come for these fish. Then it will alert us," Fan Kai said. Sun Yushan stood on a rock, looked around for a moment, and then said, "I remember there was a pioneering spot over there. Last year, when I came here, I seem to have seen it. Let's wait there." She and Fan Kai had been to this place before. Desolate beasts would roam randomly. The last time they were searching for other desolate beasts, they passed through here, so they were somewhat familiar with the area. But just as they were about to head towards the safe spot Sun Yushan mentioned, at that moment, from somewhere, suddenly came the crying of a baby.
Wah wah wah.
What was that sound? All three of them immediately became alert. Whimper, whimper, whimper. The sound was intermittent, like a human youngling crouched in a corner, crying, and it was elusive, making it hard to pinpoint the exact location. A lost baby? But that was impossible. No one would bring a baby to such a place as the Outer Domain Wilds. Do you recognize this sound? Xiang Beifei asked. Fan Kai and Sun Yushan looked at each other, pondering. Is it a whimpering creature? Fan Kai asked. It doesn't seem like it. The whimpering creature's sound is like a little girl being coquettish, which I can't stand. But this sound is clearly a child's genuine crying. Sun Yushan said gravely. Then what desolate beast is it? I don't remember any other desolate beasts that cry like this apart from the whimpering creature.
Fan Kai spoke.
The whimpering creature is a very cute desolate beast, resembling a rabbit, and it draws attention by whimpering, which is why it got the name whimpering creature. But if you are attracted by its adorable appearance, the next moment it would pounce and bite through your throat. However, the whimpering creature is only at the early stages of chi controlling. Most pioneers are not afraid of it, and everyone could kill one with a single punch. Sun Yushan listened intently, shaking his head. It's hard to determine. Mr. Yi had said long ago that the desolate beasts of the Outer Domain Wilds never stay in one place. It must be some desolate beast we are not familiar with passing through here. They walked carefully forward, passing a building that looked like a derelict opera house, and then came upon a ruin overgrown with trees and crisscrossed buildings. On the wall of that ruin was a special mark, as if someone had drawn a circle with a branch. It was about the size of a wash basin. That place is a pioneer point set up by pioneers, also called a safe house. Fan Kai explained to Xiang Beifei. Pioneers usually set up safe houses in various places while exploring the Outer Domain Wilds, in case of emergency. Any cultivator who enters the Outer Domain Wilds and sees a safe house can temporarily go inside to avoid desolate beasts. Xiang Beifei nodded slightly. He had read about pioneer points in books, a spatial type of rest area with various food supplies, and also a good place to stay overnight, but this was his first time seeing one in the Outer Domain Wilds. The greatness of the pioneers lay here, as they were essentially paving the way for other subsequent explorers into the Outer Domain Wilds and setting up many pioneer points, facilitating mutual assistance between them. These pioneer points are camouflaged to avoid destruction by desolate beasts, so their locations are inconspicuous, but there's a simple sign to remind them, one generally only humans would understand what it meant. The three of them were about to head to the pioneer point when Xiang Beifei suddenly felt something was off and let out a light yelp. Wait a second, Xiang Beifei said. What's wrong? Fan Kai asked. Xiang Beifei hesitated for a moment, looked around, stretched out his hand as if trying to grab something in the air but caught nothing, and then he furrowed his brow. What are you doing? Sun Yushan asked. Xiang Beifei said, I don't know how to explain. I feel there's something off about this place. It might be my imagination, but I feel. He actually believed it was not his imagination, just that he could not be sure. What exactly is the situation? Speak up, Sun Yushan asked sternly. Rule number 2 of the Pioneer Behavior Code. In the Outer Domain Wilds, you must never ignore any intuition. Many desolate beasts move unseen. You think it's just your imagination, but in reality, it's using your misconception to camouflage itself. Fan Kai also vigilantly scanned the surroundings. He and Sun Yushan had been navigating the Outer Domain Wilds for 3 years, possessed incredibly rich experience, and their cultivation was at the meridian opening stage. They were almost ready to become full-fledged pioneers, quite unlike the freshly qualified students Guohan and Sun Rui sent earlier by Yu Qixin. Even though Sun Yushan had some reservations about Xiang Beifei being a sword cultivator, she did not take his intuition lightly. This reassured Xiang Beifei. The last thing he wanted to hear was his expressing concerns only to be rebuffed by Sun Yushan. Let me think for a second. Xiang Beifei closed his eyes. The intuition had been sensed through his spiritual power. His range of spiritual power was still not very extensive, about 10 meters or so around him, but if he focused his spiritual power into a line, he could extend this detection range much further, approximately several tens of meters. His spiritual power slowly extended out, entering the building they had just passed, and at that moment, he sensed something, swiftly turned around, and at the same time, it seemed something had flitted past in the building behind them. Over there. Fan Kai and Sun Yushan also turned around, and they too saw that fleeting shadow. The shadow's speed was very fast. It seemed to have been watching them continuously, and yet they had not noticed it until now. Is it a desolate beast? Fan Kai's body was surrounded by a cloud of dust as he vigilantly watched the building, ready to react to any sudden attacks. The building was dark inside, those windows looking like black eyes coldly watching them, giving a rather eerie feeling. Does that look like a human shadow to you? Sun Yushan said gravely. Or a human-like desolate beast? Maybe a type of monkey or ape? Fan Kai asked. It's probably not a human. Xiang Beifei shook his head. His spiritual power was newly mastered, and he was unable to form an image of it. The shadow had flashed by too quickly, almost in the blink of an eye. However, when the other person flashed past, Xiang Beifei did not see that person's system interface. This was the only way he could distinguish between humans and desolate beasts. Sun Yushan pondered for a moment, then said, Don't bother with it. If it hasn't attacked us, we don't need to concern ourselves with it. Let's head to the pioneering point first. She gestured for Fan Kai and Xiang Beifei to continue walking towards the pioneering point ahead. But Xiang Beifei suddenly became solemn and said, We can't go there. Why? Sun Yushan furrowed her brows. It's hard to say. This is my second time to the outer domain wilderness. I don't have as much experience as you, and there are many things I can't explain, but my perception is very strong. There seems to be something wrong with that pioneering point. Xiang Beifei stared intently at that sign. His understanding of the outer domain wilderness undoubtedly did not compare to the two people beside him, but he was very sensitive to the system. In textbooks, he had studied the structure of pioneering points, which are a type of spatial system item. He could easily recognize anything that was a system spatial item. However, the pioneering point in front of him did not have any characteristics of the system. In other words, it looked more like something disguised. This posed a difficulty for Fan Kai and Sun Yushan, as they did not have the same perception as Xiang Beifei, and so they could not be sure of the truth of Xiang Beifei's words. How strong is your perception? Fan Kai asked. Above standard, Xiang Beifei said simply. Read New Adventures at Empire. Fan Kai frowned. Wah wah wah. At this moment, the whimpering sound that had been merely sobbing suddenly turned into loud crying, as if a child had fallen and was screaming exhaustively for someone to help. The sound made them even more irritable. Let me confirm, the marker of the pioneering point can distinguish human spiritual power. Sun Yushan took a few steps forward, a dark spear appearing in her hand, which gleamed with a special brilliance. Whoosh! She threw the spear forward, and as it flew through the air, it turned into a stream of light, reaching its target in a flash and thrusting towards the marker of the pioneering point. Just as the spear was about to pierce the marker, it suddenly halted in midair, stopping instantly, with its tip less than an inch from the mark on the wall, at which point the spiritual power attached to the tip of the spear transferred to the marker. How is it? Fan Kai asked. Sun Yushan said, It absorbed my spiritual power. That's a pioneering point. Pioneering points recognize the spiritual power of cultivators but repel desolate beasts. Others in the outer domain wilderness on missions, if they want to enter the pioneering point, need only input spiritual power. After the marker absorbs the spiritual power, it will open. And the pioneering point marker in front of them had absorbed the spiritual power, confirming it was genuine. But Xiang Beifei still insisted, There is definitely something wrong with that place. I feel like either the pioneering point has been damaged, or it's a location disguised by some desolate beasts. It may have camouflaged the entire area with an illusion. Fan Kai and Sun Yushan looked at each other. You have never been to a pioneering point before. You should know that we are more familiar with pioneering points than you, Sun Yushan said. Then you should be even more cautious than I am, Xiang Beifei said. Sun Yushan furrowed her brows. As she had been navigating the outer domain wilderness longer than Xiang Beifei and had visited numerous pioneering points. In her view, there was nothing wrong with the pioneering point in front of her. On the side, Fan Kai said, Mr. Yi has said that if there is a disagreement in a team in the outer domain wilderness, the safest opinion should be adopted. Since Xiang Beifei's perception is off, we won't go. Sun Yushan remained silent for a moment before she finally spoke. Okay. Although she didn't quite trust the intuition of Xiang Beifei, who was on his second expedition to the outer regions, she acknowledged his well-trained potential as a pioneering awakener. He wasn't bent on going his own way. Just then, Fan Kai's monitor vibrated. When Lin has taken the bait, Fan Kai rejoiced. The signal shows it's on the left. The location was not the direction of the pioneering site. Xiang Beifei slightly relaxed. Now, he didn't have to agonize over whether to head to the pioneering point or not. Without any hesitation, they turned and made their way to the left. The previously clear channel meandered before them, quickly revealing itself. The clear waters of the lake gurgled, flowing up to a partially collapsed office building. The building appeared to have more than 20 stories, but it seemed as though it had been cut in half. Half of it had collapsed onto the ground, and the remaining floors were crooked, some of the main beams askew, as if slapped away by a giant desolate beast. The clear channel reached the wall of this building, and to their surprise, the water didn't stop at the wall but continued flowing upward along the crumbling masonry, then through the distorted windows into the building. This reverse-flowing channel was exceedingly eerie, with water flowing upward instead of down. The signal shows that when Lin is inside, Fan Kai whispered, wah wah wah. But when they reached there, the persistent cries became even clearer, as if the child that had been crying all along was right in this building. That sound. Why does it seem like it's surrounding the building? Xiang Beifei concentrated his spiritual power into a thread, pushing it deep into the building, but his spiritual power was not strong enough. Searching in a straight line made it difficult to detect anything else. Fan Kai and Sun Yushan exchanged glances. At this point, it was clear that there could be no whimpering creature inside, but the pervasive crying was quite irksome. They were also unclear about which desolate beast might be disguising itself through these cries. However, now that they had found this place, there was no intention of retreating. The outer wastelands were inherently bizarre, filled with all sorts of strange, desolate beasts. If they gave up on their mission just because of a somewhat strange sound, then the pioneers might as well not think about carrying out their tasks at all. Let's go, get inside. Fan Kai, you cover the rear. Newcomers, stay in the middle. Don't get separated. Sun Yushan glanced at Xiang Beifei. Remember, if anything feels off, grab me immediately. I will escape instantly. Fan Kai cautioned Xiang Beifei again. Understood. Xiang Beifei nodded. Fan Kai's abilities were very useful among the pioneers, for if they encountered a powerful and undefeatable desolate beast, sticking with Fan Kai would mean a chance at survival. Thus, system awakeners like Fan Kai were quite popular among pioneers. Though their team was small, having Fan Kai with them meant they still had a chance to survive. The three cautiously approached a window covered thickly with green moss. The moss, about 3 inches long and slightly twitching, seemed to swiftly retract upon their approach, disappearing without a trace. Even the green moss in the outer wastelands seemed sentient, retreating upon sensing that they were not to be messed with. Sun Yushan took out 3 metal spheres, similar yet slightly different from the devices Yuchishin had used to monitor Xiang Beifei. These were a type of black technology designed for detecting life traces, specifically used to scan for desolate beasts. Whoosh! 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 Sun Yushan didn't enter immediately but threw the spheres into the window. The spheres quickly hovered up and then scouted the pitch-black building for a moment. Once certain there were no desolate beasts inside, she signaled for Xiang Beifei and the others to follow. She leaped into the building first, landing on the decayed corridor. Xiang Beifei and Fan Kai followed suit. The corridor was dark, with visibility extremely low, barely illuminated by the faint light from the windows. The wall plaster had long since fallen off, leaving the walls cracked and exposed, showing clumps of rusted steel rebars and various strange liquid traces, as if left by some traversing desolate beast. Wah wah wah. Once inside, the cries became louder, although intermittently on and off, as if just now crying around the corner before running to the back, then seemingly moving to the third floor. The echo of an infant's cry in a building sounded very eerie. It's still some distance from us, probably right above us, maybe on the second or third floor. It must have jumped up from the outside just now, Fan Kai whispered. No worries, I see the staircase, Sun Yushan said as she walked down the corridor. The floor of the corridor was slick as if coated with glue, looking quite disgusting. The iron ball flew ahead to clear the way, and they all heightened their vigilance. But after only a few steps, as they passed through a door, a claw suddenly sprang out from inside and grabbed at Xiang Beifei. Crack! Without thinking, and without even turning his head, Xiang Beifei threw a punch to the side, hitting the claw. The claw was smashed by his punch, and a sharp scream echoed from the room, but it soon subsided. Nice moves, Fan Kai exclaimed, surprised. He had noticed the claw darting out and was about to step in to defend Xiang Beifei, but Xiang reacted even faster, and his response was decisively brutal. That claw belongs to a one-armed crab, a desolate beast in the later stages of chi controlling. Sun Yushan looked at Xiang Beifei surprisingly, then added, but we need to finish it off. It's a communal living desolate beast. If it calls its companions, it will be troublesome for us. In the wild, unimportant desolate beasts can be ignored, but in abandoned buildings like this, it's necessary to clear out those non-solitary beasts to avoid being surrounded by their companions, which would complicate things. No need, Xiang Beifei said. It's already dead. As he spoke, there was a whoosh sound, and a burst of exploding flames lit the room, revealing a shadow that fell by the door. It was a huge white crab the size of a suitcase. It was still aflame, half of it charred red, no longer able to move, clearly burned to death. Xiang Beifei's spiritual power was not simple anymore. Since learning that amazing set of defense skills from Professor Gua, his punches not only carried the violence of rapid flame but also a terrifying recoil force. With his abilities, he could easily have killed that large crab outright. Sun Yushan looked thoughtfully at Xiang Beifei, her eyes shimmering as she completely let go of any reservations she had about him. I think I understand now why Mr. Yi allowed you to come with us, she said. Fan Kai was also very surprised. Although killing that one-armed crab would have been easy for him too, under those circumstances, he definitely would have needed to follow up with another strike, while for Xiang Beifei one punch sufficed. Your flame is very strange. Fan Kai stared at the crab, swallowing. It even roasted it. Now I'm getting hungry. The one-armed crab was originally white but had been roasted red by Xiang Beifei. However, this large crab was not edible. It was just a joking remark. Xiang Beifei had Xiaohei immediately spit out bubbles to collect the large crab, preventing the tempting aroma from spreading and attracting other desolate beasts. The beast pill of a desolate beast in the later stages of chi controlling was still very useful, if not for himself then for Kong Shouwen or Lu Jiwei. Let's go, don't delay. They reached a corner, then headed towards the stairs leading to the second floor. The stair corner was overgrown with various black plants about 4 or 5 feet long, looking very disgusting with their claw-like branches lightly pulsating. Sun Yushan slashed with her knife, and between the flashes of the blade, she slaughtered these plant-like desolate beasts. However, just as they stepped onto the third floor, about to enter the third-floor corridor through the ragged staircase opening, Xiang Beifei turned his head, staring towards the corner leading to the stairs of the 4th floor. There seemed to be a figure flashing by again. What's wrong? Enjoy exclusive content from Empire. It's that thing, Xiang Beifei said. Alert. What thing? The one you saw earlier, Sun Yushan asked. Yes, it seems to be stealthily following us, Xiang Beifei said. With a flick of her hand, Sun Yushan sent the iron ball zooming up towards the fourth floor, rounding the staircase, while she stared at a small display on her wrist. However, the display showed nothing. No life signals, Sun Yushan said. Fan Kai said, when Lin is on this third floor, getting closer to us. Forget that thing. After catching when Lin, we'll make our escape directly. This old city has always been a bit eerie. Okay. Sun Yushan called back the iron ball, then stepped into the corridor. While Xiang Beifei was still pondering about the thing hiding on the fourth floor, Fan Kai urged him to move on, and he had no choice but to follow Sun Yushan. A wind blew through the third-floor corridor, rustling and carrying a hint of chill. The place resembled a school building, with doors and windows leaving a large corridor, one side lined with broken rooms, the other with damaged walls. To the left, Fan Kai said. They turned left, where the corridor had no greasy substances but was covered in various claw marks as if something had been dragged across. Due to the age, the floor of the corridor had corroded into holes of varying sizes. Through these holes, they could faintly see the dark corridor below on the second floor. They carefully crossed the holes in the floor, but just then, a strange howling came from below, as if a shadow flashed past the holes below. There's something in the corridor on the second floor, Fan Kai exclaimed in a low voice, looking down at the hole in the floor that was big enough for a person to crawl through which one could jump directly to the second floor corridor. Did you see anything clearly? Sun Yushan asked. I don't know. Fan Kai held his breath, crouching at the edge of the hole in the ground, leaning in to look down, but the view into the second floor corridor from this hole was so dimly lit he could see nothing at all. With a wave of his hand, the small sphere hovering above his head whooshed down into the hole, searching the second floor corridor while he stared intently at the display screen. The corridor on the screen was darker than the third floor, and visibility was even lower. As the sphere rotated rapidly, scanning ahead and behind, a shadow suddenly flitted across the screen and disappeared into a room on the second floor. There's something on the second floor, probably a desolate beast. Having seen the shadow flash across the display screen, Fan Kai replayed the scene, then paused it. The captured image was very dark and, due to the speed of the moving object, it was blurred and unclear. He zoomed in on the image he had captured and processed it slightly. But soon they were greatly shocked. How could it be? Fan Kai looked up in surprise at Sun Yushan and Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei had also seen the image captured by Fan Kai's detection sphere and looked slightly astonished. Although the image was unclear, they could vaguely make out the figure like a person. Or rather, a strange person. A person without a head. And it seemed he was holding his own head in his hands. The man, holding his own head, then disappeared through a door at the far end of the second floor corridor. What is this? Sun Yushan took the monitor from Fan Kai's hand and examined the image closely, exclaiming in surprise, this headless person, carrying his own head, running on the second floor? Xiang Beifei stared intently at the screen, his voice grave. He might not be human. This is the city of the old days. It could be some kind of desolate beast in disguise. I don't remember any desolate beast like this. Fan Kai pondered for a long while, then shook his head. What kind of desolate beast would disguise itself as a headless person? This was merely the Western Hills' fifth zone of the cultivated domain, still within the least dangerous exteriors, merely 300 kilometers from the border of Juzhou. Fan Kai and Sun Yushan often hunted desolate beasts in this area and had a rough idea of what species of desolate beasts were distributed where in the Western Hills' fifth zone. But they had never encountered such a bizarre phenomenon before. In the distance, faint yet distinct, the cries of a baby echoed, continuously wah-wah-wah calling non-stop, making the atmosphere of this building even more eerie. As they were thinking, suddenly, a rustling sound came again from the corridor on the second floor, as if something was swiftly crawling along the other side of the corridor beneath their feet, followed immediately by a loud crack. The screen in Fan Kai's hand went black. Below, chewing sounds could be heard, accompanied by the noise of metal being shattered. Damn! The detection sphere was attacked by something. Fan Kai's face changed slightly. He put away the monitor and again leaned over the edge of the hole in the ground to see what was happening below. But Sun Yushan pulled him back, saying, "Stop looking. Something's not right. Just leave it be." Fan Kai was somewhat reluctant. The detection sphere was very valuable, having been requested from the Black Technology Research Center, requiring several hundred academic points to exchange. However, he did not recklessly jump down the hole to the second floor to investigate the situation. Finding Wen Lin was their next priority. Xiang Beifei felt the atmosphere in the building becoming increasingly sinister, always feeling as if a pair of eyes were watching them, especially just now when transitioning from the third floor to the fourth floor, at the stairs turn where there clearly was a shadow. Wait a minute. The fourth floor? Xiang Beifei remembered something. Suddenly looked up towards the ceiling. He had been focused on the hole underfoot, but had neglected that the ceiling was also corroded with holes everywhere, and when he looked up, his gaze landed on a fist-sized hole. An eye, full of blood vessels, was peering through that fist-sized hole at them, its gaze colliding with that of Xiang Beifei. "There's someone upstairs." Xiang Beifei inhaled sharply. He had always focused his attention on the third-floor corridor and the holes in the ground, neglecting the ceiling above. It was only now that he realized where that sense of being watched came from. The person was right above them, and they were completely unaware. Sun Yushan and Fan Kai also quickly looked up, but the eye in the hole disappeared instantly. Yet they had all seen the eye. It was a human eye. "Is someone following us?" Sun Yushan spoke in a deep voice, taking 2 steps forward. He spotted a slightly larger hole, and immediately 2 one-foot-long axes appeared in his hand. "You guys wait here." After she spoke, she tossed the axes upward. The axes spun rapidly and swiftly flew towards the fourth floor through the ceiling hole. Whoosh! Whoosh! The axes sliced through the air of the fourth-floor corridor, flashing around the hole. If there was any desolate beast around this hole, it would immediately be chopped into pieces by her axes. Then, Sun Yushan leapt up more than 3 meters high, her body agilely moving through the hole in the ceiling and landing in the corridor of the fourth floor. "See anything?" Fan Kai asked from below. His sand had always been covering Sun Yushan, ready to whisk her away if the situation turned dire. "Let's go up too, don't split up." Beifei also moved 2 steps, finding a hole in the ceiling large enough for his body, kicked against the wall, grabbed the edge of the hole, and then stepped onto the fourth floor's corridor. Fan Kai was relatively heavy. The holes in the ceiling varied in size, and the one that Beifei and Sun Yushan chose was too small for him to squeeze through. He ran a couple more steps, then using his sand also climbed up to the fourth floor corridor. The fourth floor corridor was pitch black, even dimmer and gloomier than the third floor, accompanied by a rotting smell like stinking eggs, making one nauseous. The layout of this floor was similar to the third floor, also a long dim corridor with rooms on one side, the doors long gone. Beifei rapidly spread his spiritual power, searching the fourth floor quickly. "Wait, let me check." Sun Yushan had the 18-weapon system, and she could control these weapons in a variety of agile ways, enlarging and shrinking them at will. The weapons spread out, casting cold glimmers in the air like they had eyes, slicing through the air as they sought their target. She searched every room with her weapons, but found no one. "He got away," Sun Yushan frowned. Fan Kai hesitated, then said, "I don't know if you guys find it strange, but that I just now was odd. Not quite like a normal person's. If I have to describe it, it's more like a dead person," Beifei interjected. "Exactly. Although it was bloodshot, it seemed to be covered with a gray film, dull and lifeless," Fan Kai added. "Whoa, whoa, whoa." The eerie crying sound rang again, echoing all around, ethereal and faint. Recalling the headless figure clutching its head detected on the second floor, and the eye that had been secretly watching them from the fourth floor, they all felt uneasy. "Forget all this, we need to hurry to the third floor, capture Wen Lin, and leave this place," Sun Yushan said gravely. This building was indeed too eerie. Staying any longer was not feasible. They immediately located the hole they came up through, jumped down from it, and landed back on the third floor corridor. However, just as they landed, A strange and hoarse voice suddenly came from behind them. Woo! Save! Woo! Save! Save me! This voice attracted them from behind, and turning their heads to look, they found a person lying on the ground 20 meters away. There's someone here. Fan Kai was walking at the back, so when he turned around, he saw that person first. The figure was covered in blood, resembling a male, lying at a door not far from them. His lower half was inside the door, with only his upper body and arms in the corridor, as if he had collapsed from inside and fell outward. He was riddled with injuries, his mouth gaping open and closed, his eyes bloodshot and filled with terror as he looked at Xiang Beifei and the others, his hand laboriously reaching up as though begging for their help. It's a pioneer. That's the standard uniform of pioneers hired by the Alliance. Fan Kai exclaimed in a low voice. They hadn't expected to actually find a pioneer trapped in the city of the old days. Go and check, he must have been attacked, and whatever attacked him might still be nearby. Stay alert. Sun Yushan scoured the vicinity with her gaze to make sure it was safe before approaching the man. Hold on. Xiang Beifei quickly grabbed Sun Yushan. What's wrong? Find your next adventure on Empire. Something's off about that person, Xiang Beifei said, frowning. Of course, something's off. He must have been attacked by a desolate beast. Don't worry, we've encountered situations like this many times. We'll first conduct a probe to ascertain the surroundings, and if we can't help, we'll leave him be, Sun Yushan assured him. In the wilderness beyond civilization, if they encountered a pioneer in distress, they should help, because Sun Yushan and Fan Kai were also pioneers and had the obligation and responsibility to protect their colleagues. No, I mean, he doesn't look like a person, Xiang Beifei said gravely. He could see everyone's system interface. Typically, it appeared right before the person's eyes, and he could clearly see what each individual system interface was like. But the system interface was completely absent above the bloodied man's head. What do you mean, not a person? Fan Kai asked on alert. It's hard to explain, but he's definitely not a person, Xiang Beifei said confidently. Just as they hesitated, the man at the door suddenly began thrashing in terror, his gaze fixed on something within the door, as if some horrific entity inside was drawing near. His throat convulsed desperately, as though resisting the monster within. Whoosh! Then, in an instant, he was dragged inside the door. Ah! A scream emanated from inside the door. The man seemed to be enduring severe torment, his voice piercingly shrill, filling them with dread. No, we have to check it out. He's an Alliance pioneer, we can't just let him die. Fan Kai, be ready to pull us out at any moment. If something's wrong, get us out of here immediately, Sun Yushan said urgently. Alliance pioneers were one of the most esteemed professions in the world, though also with the highest mortality rate. Some chose the career because they loved adventure, some because their loved ones had been killed by desolate beasts, others for their system tasks or to obtain beast pills to enhance themselves, and some were driven by a noble sense of mission to contribute to the future of humanity. But regardless of the motive, each pioneer was, in a sense, one of their own. Okay. Fan Kai was already covered in dust, wrapping both Xiang Beifei and Sun Yushan in it. Xiang Beifei was worried. The sudden appearance of this strange person, and the mysterious entity that had been following them without revealing itself, could attack at any moment. This city of the old days was clearly not right. Xiang Beifei's attention remained fixed on the corridor entrance behind them. Sun Yushan and Fan Kai hadn't noticed anything unusual there, but it was imperative for him to be vigilant. But at that moment Sun Yushan had already briskly moved forward, her hands gripping two hook swords, ready to deal with any situation. However, just as they moved forward a few steps, they saw the blood-soaked man suddenly crawling out of the room on his own. His blood leaving a trail on the floor, now in the corridor, he lifted his head to look at Xiang Beifei and the others. Save! He mumbled from his throat, trying to articulate, but as he opened his mouth, bright red blood flowed out, a ghastly sight to behold. Who are you? What happened? Sun Yushan was cautious. She didn't rush to help the man but approached step by step, all the while surveying their surroundings, particularly the door the man had just crawled from. Yet, The more Xiang Beifei considered the situation, the more uneasy he felt, halting Sun Yushan with a low command. Don't approach. Be careful. I saw the badge on his chest. He's an alliance pioneer. Sun Yushan declared seriously. We have to help. I told you, he's not a person. Xiang Beifei's voice rose, and then he fixed his gaze firmly on the man as his spiritual power rapidly spread towards him. And then, crackle. Xiang Beifei's spiritual power swiftly intertwined around the man, instantly igniting into flames. The man seemed not to have expected to burst into flames. The panic in his eyes vanished, replaced by an annoyed expression. He quickly slapped away the flames on his clothes with speed so rapid it was astonishing. Not at all like someone who was previously at death's door. This! Sun Yushan was shocked. At the same time, the blood-stained man suddenly turned his head, his pupils darkening with malevolence, and then he leaped towards them fiercely. Sun Yushan had already reacted by then and immediately swung the twin-hook swords in his hands, slashing at the man in front of him. Swish! Sun Yushan's hook swords slashed across the man's chest, and in mid-air, the man's body suddenly burst open, numerous disgusting tentacles drilling out from under his skin, densely covering the entire corridor. Whoosh! 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 The tentacles attacked from all directions. Sun Yushan's hook swords danced tightly, flashing with cold light, severing all the incoming tentacles. What kind of desolate beast is this? Xiang Beifei asked urgently. He had never seen such a strange desolate beast in books. I don't know. We've never seen anything like this around here. Fan Kai looked very grave. Even you haven't seen it? Xiang Beifei felt something was wrong. Both Fan Kai and Sun Yushan were experienced trainees who had killed many desolate beasts and definitely knew more about the types of desolate beasts than Xiang Beifei did. Meanwhile, suddenly from behind came a strange cackle of laughter. Xiang Beifei turned around only to see more shadows emerging in the corridor behind them. These people all came out from the doors on the sides of the corridor, each of them covered in scars, seemingly having suffered serious injuries. Some wounds were even turned inside out, and some areas were still bleeding. Yet, on the chests of their clothing, without exception, each bore the badge of pioneers. Whoosh! 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 Various black tentacles sprang from their skin. These tentacles were very fine, just like hair, filling the entire corridor, densely rushing towards them. Some even surged towards the windows outside the corridor, quickly covering the windows. Run! Run! Sun Yushan noticed that these tentacles could not be eradicated, and didn't know what they were, but they were becoming more and more numerous. He immediately shouted to Fan Kai. Fan Kai had already grabbed Xiang Beifei and Sun Yushan, preparing to escape. Then quickly his expression drastically changed. Fan Kai, what are you doing? Run now! Sun Yushan barked. These tentacles, it seems they've covered the whole building, cutting off my connection to the escape point. Fan Kai said urgently. It's been blocked. Yes. Fan Kai's escape technique also had its limitations. Some desolate beasts possessed various abilities to block space, and if surrounded, they could make his escape technique ineffective. Damn! Sun Yushan swung forward and released two powerful sword chi. But these sword chi, entering into the dense tentacles, were like a stone thrown into a pond, meaningless. Fan Kai swung his hands forward, and dirt suddenly covered the area, forming a wall, blocking all the tentacles coming from both sides of the corridor. However, soon, a crack, crack, crack sound began. The tentacles crashed into the wall, like omnipresent roots, burrowing into the dirt wall, and Fan Kai's dirt wall was cracked by the tentacles. It looked like it was about to fail. Quick! Run to the stairs. See if there's an exit, Xiang Beifei shouted. The three of them immediately ran towards the staircase they had entered from. Fortunately, they had not gone too far, and instantly entered the stairwell, but two people were also coming up the stairs below. Whoosh! Whoosh! Read latest stories on Empire. These two people also burst out with tentacles, rolling towards them. Xiang Beifei, seeing those tentacles, immediately swung forward a burst of fist wind. The fist wind carrying explosive spiritual power hammered into those tentacles. The tentacles caught fire and immediately ignited, thrashing about in pain, withdrawing back. These tentacles are afraid of fire. Xiang Beifei shouted. Quick! Use the fire pills. Understood. Sun Yushan immediately took out several pills. These pills were also a kind of high-tech. When traveling outside, they prepared many items, not just ice pills but also water pills, fire pills, thunder pills, various kinds of synthetic tools. Fan Kai and Sun Yushan immediately threw the fire pills out, exploding in mid-air, unleashing huge flames. However, those tentacles seemed to be unafraid of the flames bursting from the fire pill. They moved as if they had ignored the fire pill, passing through the flames and continuing to charge this way. They're not afraid of the flames, Fan Kai shouted. How can they not be afraid? My flames are very effective against them, Xiang Beifei exclaimed. Not sure. Fan Kai threw another fire pill, but the flames from the fire pill still could not stop those tentacles. In a moment of urgency, Xiang Beifei punched out again, his fist wind bursting and howling, turning into a flame gale and reigniting. Those tentacles, upon encountering Xiang Beifei's rapid flame gale, were ignited once again and twisted painfully as they retracted. They're not afraid of flames, they're just afraid of your flames. What's special about your flames?
Fan Kai exclaimed.
I don't know, it's just fist flame. Xiang Beifei's flames were produced by friction from his spiritual power. He initially learned rapid flame from Lu Hong and then improved upon it. If you ask what's special, it seems there's nothing special. But he suddenly remembered the last time he went to fight the desolate beasts, whether it was the ghost giant snail, the triangular thunderkite, or other fire snakes, they seemed to dread his fist flame. Could Uncle Lu's rapid flame be so powerful? Specialized in defeating various desolate beasts? But upon thinking, it seemed not right because rapid flame was just a way of deploying spiritual power. Normally, the true strength of rapid flame lies in the spiritual power it deploys, not the method itself. Was it a problem with his own spiritual power? At this time, an explosion sounded from the corridor. The earthen wall Fan Kai had formed was burst through by the tentacles, which surged in from the corridor entrance. Xiang Beifei immediately turned around, staring intently at those tentacles. An invisible force spread out from him, landing on the tentacles, and the incoming tentacles were abruptly stopped in mid-air. Abruptly stop. All the agitated tentacles seemed to freeze instantly. However, there were too many tentacles. They were immobilized for about 2 seconds, before they immediately began to struggle, and Xiang Beifei swiftly punched towards the corridor, temporarily repelling the tentacles. But rapid flame's effect was limited. It only lasted a few seconds in the air before disappearing, and the tentacles regrouped and surrounded them once again. They feared Xiang Beifei's flames, but were not completely destroyed by the flames. Run to that window over there. Xiang Beifei saw a window on the landing towards the 4th floor, and although the window was also surrounded by tentacles, it was the only exit. He planned to burn his fist flame towards it to see if he could create an opening. The 3 of them quickly ran to the landing towards the 4th floor, but the tentacles behind them quickly pursued. Fan Kai hurriedly went to block them. Xiang Beifei threw his fist flames towards the window, but suddenly a stream of mucus flowed from the window. When his fist hit it, it was like hitting cotton, and he couldn't exert any strength at all. Damn it, can't break through. Xiang Beifei could only retract his fist, shaking off the disgusting mucus, which gradually solidified into something resembling an ice crystal, sealing the window. He punched again, but the ice crystal formed from the mucus was too solid, beyond his current capability to break. Can't get out. Black tentacles appeared from the 4th floor as well, and Fan Kai, also desperate, conjured 2 walls again, blocking the staircases leading to the 3rd and 4th floors. But by doing so, they were also trapped on the landing. Quick! Think of something. I can't hold this much longer.
Fan Kai shouted.
Cracks already appeared in the 2 earthen walls he had created, looking about to burst at any moment. Assist me? Channel your spiritual power into the soil. Don't resist. I am going to ignite your soil. Xiang Beifei stared intensely at the wall below. What do you mean? Fan Kai didn't quite understand. But he soon understood. As Xiang Beifei's spiritual power covered his earthen wall, which was originally cast by Fan Kai's spiritual power. With Xiang Beifei's manipulation, it immediately ignited. The flames spreading through the wall heated up, temporarily driving the tentacles back.